Ngā mihi kia koutou i te hui mai nei. Welcome to this inaugural meeting of the Environmental Delivery Committee. Auspicious day. We normally start with karakia, but we are still operating under the karakia from this morning and meetings this morning, so we'll just carry on without karakia. So welcome everybody. We got a big turnout here. We've got quite a crowd on the outside, which is awesome to see. And got some people doing some presentations. Just carry on. First of all, just call for any apologies. We don't have any apologies at this stage. We think that Councillor Laws and Councillor Gary Callagher will come up online most likely. And for that, we just move straight to public forum. So the public forum will call if you'd like to come up to the top table. So we have three groups presenting to us at public forum this morning, which is an initiative that we've taken to try and bring all those people that are doing the action out on the grounds for environmental delivery and get in front of the council to present what they've been up to. So we're looking forward to this. So first of all, we got Paul Pike presenting on behalf of the Noho Aka or Tuaki the Sinclair wetlands. So Paul, welcome and thank you very much for giving up your time for coming in. We'll let you take it away. We'll try and stick to the 10 minutes for your presentation and 4 or 5 minutes for questions. Thank you.
Am I sharing that? No, I'm not. I'm not sure how to do that.
That's sort of other presenters. When you get up there, you'll see your microphone. Just push the volume up and try and keep it relatively close to the noise outside.
Sorry, won't be a minute.
That's okay.
Is it you here?
No,
Up here.
well, there's our slideshow. There it is there.
Yeah. Just
Yep.
You need to do that.
Full screen.
Just
Come on.
make it from here.
Is that okay?
Yeah, just give it a second. Just and then you can swap here.
Oh,
There we go. We get it.
there it is. Cool. Kia ora tātou councillors. My name is Paul Pope. I was the project manager for Te Nukuro o Matamata, which was a $5 million jobs for nature project based at Te Noho Waka o Tokeaua or Sinclair Wetlands. Today I have Koreana Wesley Evans, who's from the Atako Runaka with us, and her Pepe as well, also representing the next generation. Te Nukuro o Matamata over the last 4 years, we finished the project in October last year. And it has been a large project looking at the Waihola Wetlands Complex and Rauatori catchment areas. At its height, we had 22 staff, and the idea was to put those staff through a range of different skills and training, and to basically create them into wetland rangers and have skills to be able to work in the environmental focused area. You can see, as I say, our Runaka's map and the area. You can see the red, the shaded area was our catchment part, and the wider area of Takiwa of Atako and Ngātahi. But in terms of our actual project area, the red line indicates where we were actually mainly based, and then within that you can see the green space of the Sinclair Wetlands itself. We covered an area probably around 28,000 hectares right across, and even though that red line shows that we actually went as far out to Tidy Mouth, and we also did work around the Lee Stream and Clark's Junction areas in terms of water monitoring and biodiversity monitoring. Just to give you sort of an idea of the Nohoaka Tukiao's area and its relationship to the Waihora and Waipori areas, along with the blue area, which is also a piece of hapu land called Tawhawai. As you may or may not be aware, Sinclair Wetlands, as it was called, was returned to Ngāi Tahu as part of the Treaty Settlement Act. And part of that was in response to the loss of the traditional fishing areas of Tawhawai, which was just to the north of Lake Waipori. The name Matamata, Te Nukuro o Matamata, comes from, as I say, Matamata was the Whaikaki Taniwha character of Rakataniki, and Rakataniki went south and left Matamata behind. Matamata then carved out with its tail the Taieri River and the Otago Harbour. And so in deference to that, our project was named Matamata Te Nukuro o Matamata, the movement of Matamata. In terms of traditional spaces, you can see this map here gives you an idea of the traditional Ngāi Tahu names across the catchment itself, and all of those relate, as I say, to the use of this particular area, both for visitation, for mahikakai, but also for people to live and to feed their families right across. And of course, we get into the axe and plough. This is actually on the Berwick Road. You can see the Harakiki being cut. It's enormous, and as I say, caused quite a significant change to the wetlands from 1848 onwards. But getting on to our guys, so we had quite a lot of raw recruits. And so some of the first things that we actually did was taught them chainsaw training, trapping, nursery management. We had one or two that learned how to drive diggers, fencing. We also put them through their electric fishing certificates so that they could monitor and do monitoring work with freshwater fish. First aid, outdoor medic, navigation. Some of them also went on to do some of their courses through ITO and other things like that in terms of the industry. And also, like I say, part of it was also to actually promote the wetlands itself. And this is the lovely Lucy Parsons, who is quite a showboat, as you can see. But part of it was to promote our nursery, promote our work, our mahi, and who we were and what we represented to the community. As said, navigation, boat skills was also part of it. The first photo shows Tui Kroll, who was our tracking supervisor. We actually ran a series of network traps right through the whole catchment and did a range of other monitoring work, all with a focus on, as I say, improving the mahikakai values of the wetlands and the freshwater areas. Kanakana, the lamprey, was once an important part of this catchment, and we were fortunate enough, using our electric fishing skills, to actually find kanakana sprat within some of the farmers' small creeks around Waihora. And that farmer was really excited by that, by the fact that he'd actually fenced his wetlands and his streams in that, and realised that actually his farm was actually playing a part in kanakana restoration in that area. It's a vast network. I mean, Waipori, Waihora is 2,500 hectares. And of course, there's a massive maze, not only of wetlands and creeks and rivers, but also as a maze of different landowners right across that. So it was a complicated project to manage, particularly in the weed control area. In terms of our trapping, we covered approximately about 25,000 hectares in terms of home range for mustelids and possums. We removed quite a significant number of those species from areas around the wetlands right up to Mokaatua, and subsequently then moved on with the Halo people to support them right out through to Silverstream, and also right down the Millennium Track into the Taieri. Our numbers, certainly the numbers removed from Norwalker itself, it was exciting to see that we eventually started to see some of the more important bird species come back, such as the marsh crake, and also the fernbird numbers also started to come back, as well as I forgot his bloody name now, as well as some others, and that was a direct result of the work that intense work that we did around that area. And we know now that that there are breeding pairs of a number of quite significant species in these areas. Possums also played a big part in the removal, not so much in the wetlands, but in the outside areas as well. The gentleman that you see on the left was very much a city slicker, never trapped a possum in his life. Within 3.5 years, he was working in the bush on his own, navigating and setting his own run of leg hold traps from that point of view. The gentleman on the right, in the orange, is actually Pureana's partner, Ollie. And Ollie has probably been a bushman since he was about 5 or 6, so he didn't really need so much training, but he was there to provide leadership. A big part of what we did, and this is a sort of a summary around some of the things, planting, weed control, a big part of that is the overview of the values of Ōtākau, especially around some of our weeding practices, carving practices, and the hikakai practices as well. And that formed a basis for our project. One of the other things that it managed to do, and I think because we were not an agency as such, it opened doors with us to actually be able to go into private land and support landowners on private land. And this gentleman here owns probably one of the largest collection of kahikatea, mature kahikatea trees on the Taieri. And we were able to support him with pest control, planting, which allowed us also then to look at seed collection as well for supporting our nursery. And like I say, the gentleman here, this area, for example, was actually an area where Te Koko was actually harvested for kai. These trees are a remnant of that, and again, because we were not an agency, we weren't the regional council, we weren't DOC, we went to the DCC, we just rocked up and said actually we're quite interested in those Te Koko trees, and told him the story. That opened up doors for us in supporting those landowners. Here's Pureana, and we use these small woven kite for actually planting pure into the wetland sites, as opposed to using plastic bags and other things like that, because it actually provides a better opportunity for those plants to come away. And of course, the whakaaro side of the weaving, the raraka side of the work is also, and many of our neighbours and supporters received bouquets. I think eventually they got sick of weaving flowers and moved on to other things, but that became part of what we were doing as well. And not to neglect, as I say, kai, and we have hosted a number of, it's amazing how many farmers actually enjoy titi cooked in the hangi, and enjoyed our hospitality, and raised and created good relationships with our neighbours from that point of view. And going to look through because I think we're up to time. And now we have two full tunnel houses, shade houses on our site, and basically have almost a professional nursery now created on the wetland site itself. And I think that is my time. I did a bell, so I'm presuming that's what that was.
Thank you, Paul. It's an awesome snapshot of where you're at and what you've been doing. It's like mahi going in all directions, eh? You know, but also welcome Koreana as well up front. So you're obviously very much an integral part of the equation as well. So welcome. We do have time for some questions. Do we have any questions for Paul and Koreana? I've got Andrew and then Kate.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Paul, you just mentioned about the challenge with weed spraying stuff. So I assume that's because A, the nature of the wetland, and B, the proximity of the weeds amongst valuable vegetation. Was that a problem? Or?
So one of the things that we did was we partnered with the Lake Waihola Lake Woody Wetlands Society, who had I think it's a 10 or 12-year resource consent for herbicide application, aerial herbicide application. So rather than using helicopters for that, what we actually did was we used agricultural drones, and we discovered a drone operator that had one, I think, with a 40-litre payload. And we tackled one area of some of it was private land, which we subsequently removed the willows from that 69 hectares with the drone. And we covered about 120 hectares of land using the drone. And we analysed our bikill using aerial photography. Of the 120 hectares, we looked at about 3,000 square metres of potential bikill, of which about 75% of that was actually reed sweetgrass dieback. So only a very tiny percentage of what we use in the agricultural drone, and this is where the technology side of that is far better. You just physically can't get into the site on foot to do a lot of that work. So the drone and having that extra funding through the Jobs for Nature side of it allowed us to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Look, thank you. And what has been a wonderful part of the journey for me watching from the social media is it's brought a beautiful story forward when there's so much rubbish on there. It has been just to see all of the work in Mahi. It has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you. I'm just interested. So the funding stopped. You've still got the nursery, and there's two parts to this. And last time I saw you, Paul, was out on the site that I can't remember, but the Urapai site, and I actually asked the question after that, which I will follow up on about land ownership that we've got on the tiling. But so your two the photo. What are the opportunities going forward? Are you looking at harvesting harakeke potentially at some stage again?
So out of the 22, as I say, most of them, all of them have gone into some sort of employment of the trainees. I'm the only one that actually lost my job when the project finished, but that's okay, I can sort of cope. And then there is a small crew at the moment that are working part-time at the nursery at North Waka. In the longer term, there are certainly some decisions and big decisions that Ōtaka Runanga must make in relation to where they go, and also how the North Waka Trust manage the nursery from that going forward. I can't speak for that because I don't speak for them, but those discussions are sort of ongoing at the moment to see where that will go. And certainly Nukuroa made a big impact on the wetlands, Silica wetlands itself, in terms of setting up the infrastructure for it to go forward. But there's still, there's a lot of work. There's still work to be done, and I think that's one of the problems with Jobs for Nature. Perhaps is you were so focused on getting the task and the outcomes that you were doing done. But the reality was you actually needed to think, or have the opportunity to think what the next steps were, whether you became a contracting organisation and that sort of thing. We have had some success in the contracting side of it, but that takes time, and it takes time to get the name out there as well. The name you're thinking is Maitapapa.
Thank you.
Henley, where the Urapā was.
Thank you.
Thank you. a quick one from Kevin.
Oh, yeah, look, really good work being done, of course, but so where to from here? And you've done all this initial work and getting exciting results. So the maintenance of that, or indeed the expansion of that, so where do you see that without getting another big chunk from up above?
So the vast area, I think we put in something like 120 or 100,000 trees and plants across the site over the 4 years, 3 to 4 years. And those plants are now at a stage where they don't actually need further maintenance because, as I say, we've got them established. Some of the private land that we did willow control and weed control, that's been so successful that there's no sort of need to carry on from that point of view. There is always, because the catchment itself and because the Waihora area is so big, 2,500 hectares, it's intermingled with so many different landowners, including yourself, that that is a challenge. I think the biggest thing that we did was raise not only awareness of what the values of Waitako was in terms of freshwater and land management, and those things will continue on. The tracking side of it will continue on, but in a smaller way. And the other thing too is that some of the sites that you set up for tracking, like we have a network of 50 AT200s, which the automated tracks, they only need to be maintained once every 3 months. Those are still killing and still doing their job. We set up a tracking network with the Taieri Group, which I think you helped fund a couple of years ago. And so we've used our money from the government to help support those groups as well, because we had not only the funding to do that, but we also had the staff to help. So we've been able to do that. So it's in pretty good stead. The money's been well invested. It's also been invested in the construction of the nursery, that sort of stuff. So going forward, it's not a doom and gloom, to be honest. And I think with the continuation of the liaison between Ōtako and the Central Wetlands Trust and the Regional Council, there is opportunities going forward, and the Department of Conservation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. It's really inspirational what you guys have been doing, and I especially like the slide with the harakeke on it. It's just taking us back to the past and a target for the future, I guess, and also really impressed with the Kanakana. That's one of my desires in life, is to find Kanakana in our waterways of West Otago. So nami mahana korua for your talks today, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Go to councils.
And we just Paul Southworth. So Paul Southworth, just coming forward now. So Paul is the lead for the Harawa Kaikorai Valley catchment group. Paul's in the last 12 months is starting to play a reasonably significant role in the Otago catchment community as well, and he's presented at the Otago Catchment Leaders Forums. Quite inspirational around some stuff, particularly in the communication area, and I think you'll find Paul's presentation to be very informative. So Paul, just once we get you loaded, straight into it. I've just been trying to find your Dimes Transport Shed, if you can slip that in somewhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gina. It's wondering why. Gina, it's trying. Yeah, they won, but games. Yes, good. Okay.
Kia ora everybody, my name's Paul Southworth. I'm the chair from Araha Kaikorai Valley. Araha Kaikorai Valley is a community group, a registered charitable trust. We're focused on plants, predators, water quality, and also now air quality as well. We're not a religious group. We're not political. We're not a protest group. and we're not an activist group, but we believe in bringing awareness through education and actually doing physical things on the ground. So our mission is to make things happen, right? That's what we do. We started in 2022. This is the trust documentation. And that guy had no idea what he was doing and started something, and then it just sort of caught on fire and away it's gone. We're in a really interesting environment because the Kaikorai Valley is heavy industrial, light commercial, it's residential, it's got schools, reserves, marae, everything's in there, and it's been treated like a drain for many years. So there's a lot of work to be done in there. Our first kind of thing that we got going is Dynes Transport donated the shed for us, and then ProSigns whacked some signs on it. We got a little bit of funding through the Eco Fund to run a residential predator network out, which we've done. And by good luck rather than good management, it actually turned into something that we could build a network really quickly. So we've started gathering people into the organisation, and that was a really good way to go in hindsight. Part of that sign is a whiteboard, and this is when we first started. We were like, okay, we've got 44 traps on the ground, then away we go. Then we got someone who could actually do some decent handwriting, and things were moving on. We started running a monthly meeting for where anyone's welcome to attend, and in this particular night we're doing education on the birds that you might find in the valley and stuff like that. And then this is one of the guys across the road, mad keen hunter. These are animals that he's trapped on his property. So he brought down ferret skins, weasels, stoats, a whole lot of possum skins, and sort of talked about how he'd been catching things like that. So this is all stuff that's getting people engaged and fired up. We showed the Radio New Zealand Fight for the Wild series over four Thursdays in the depths of winter. And that was a really good thing to get people fired up and bring them on board with what we're trying to achieve. This is our 100th trap going in, so things are growing and we're slowly meeting more people and stuff's happening. This is Charlotte. So I got the cutest email ever, and she goes, I've just been reading your flyer about backyard trapping and I'm keen to get involved. My family is very supportive of this, and sorry, our neighbours, my address is blah, 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 and our neighbours have a large native bush area. My mum's phone number is if I need, and then she's like, and I'm excited to be involved and I'm passionate about nature and the environment. Looking forward to hear from you, Charlotte. And that's Charlotte with her first rat and first possum. And I was a little bit worried about how she was going to go with it because it's nearly as big as she is. But, she was like, oh, well, I had to go and get mum. But, but that's cool, right? Because that's the future. So one of the things that I've come to realise, I thought, we've got a 100-year vision, but it's not the case at all. If you're going to plant a totara tree, they can go to 1800 years. So I'm like, well, it's a 1,000-year vision, isn't it? So I'm going to be dead and gone. The rest of us are going to be dead and gone. We need the Charlottes of the world to keep going. So it's really important to get these young people going. We've been running a few educational programs. One of our trustees is Dr. Simon McMillan from Kaikorai Valley College. And of course, he's a professional school teacher. So we're up at Balaclava School teaching kids about trapping. They've got a little science academy up there. They did some monitoring with cue cards, and then they've got their own trap network out there in their little forest in their school. So that was kind of cool. This is how many traps we've got going now. We've just inherited a bunch in Fraser's Gully as well. So it brings our total to on the ground traps of 475 at the moment. And we've got volunteers going all over the place. So when I talk about volunteers, and this is just in the trapping side, we've got everyone with a trap in their backyard. We've got our advanced trappers who can work on the steep ground, so they're doing things like Fraser's Gully. We've got the community trappers. They go around and they got some older folk that can't handle the animals or they don't want to check traps themselves, so they basically go around and have a bit of a chat and check the traps, things like that. We've got a few retired people who've got some trap lines on the flat ground, like down at Townley's Reserve and places like that. So we're just building this thing, and away it goes. this is us out in Fraser's Gully, and so one of our monthly meetings in the summertime, we try and do stuff outside. This is teaching people how to do bird counts. So one of our things is trying to make sure that we've got a 3 monthly bird count going on, so we can start setting a baseline through the valley and see what we're actually achieving and things like that. Eradication is never going to be an option in our valley, but we can certainly do suppression. Then we get on to water quality. So here's a beautiful drain just north of Stone Street, goes straight under the road and into Kaikorai Valley. So, you know, a lot of people don't even see that kind of thing. So we work with Bell McEwen Intermediate, run Waiata Marae Day, and had all these kids come in and learn about water quality, how to look for it, how to test it, and that kind of thing. And then we went out into Fraser's Gully and down to Kaikorai Valley College, and they did hands-on exercises around that water quality, looking for invertebrates, observations, all that kind of stuff. This is us taking the adults out doing that, you know, after 5 up at Kaikorai Valley College there, and just trying to get more and more people on board and understanding how those waterways work, what they need to do about it, stuff like that. They had the local scout group. They wanted to come along and do something. And of course, being scouts, they wanted to go out in the dark. So this is them doing a rubbish cleanup. Absolute health and safety nightmare, but they got a lot of rubbish. It was pretty cool. Good times. This is the adults doing a bit of a cleanup and taking some back to our shed. And this is what we got. This is 2 hours work down at Townley's on that little walkway. So that's from Donald Street to Townley's Road. Got a nomination for the Keep Dunedin Beautiful. This is something that we've ventured into. So this is one of our volunteers, Josh, who I get this message and he goes, "Oh, I've got myself an air quality monitoring device." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's interesting." And he goes, "Can you come to a meeting next week?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I could probably do that." And before I know it, I'm sitting in a meeting with Josh, and we're talking to the people that make these air quality devices. And he's basically talked them into sending us a whole bunch of them to run a network out through Kaikorai Valley. And I think we've got 7 of 10 in at the moment, and you can see the little marks on the map there. And Josh has been going out there negotiating with all the different landowners or businesses, and because they need a power supply and Wi-Fi, and you know, getting an official access agreement and all that kind of stuff in place and putting that in there. That data is going into a global database, and that's part of a network of air quality monitors right around the planet. So there's a few more of these to go in. We've got one up in Northeast Valley, and then hopefully going to get one in at Polytech and at the university as well. And Josh has kind of got a vision where that data can be used for schools can harvest that data and start studying that stuff and looking at it. But that's that awareness and education thing, right? You know, if you don't know what's going on, you're never going to change anything. We got this beautiful headline in the paper. I don't know if you guys seen this. Quite the read, and then the second part was a bit shocking as well. Our takeaway from that is there's a lot to be done. Nothing's going to be fixed tomorrow, but we can all contribute a little bit. So if we all do a little bit, you know, if we pick up all the Charlottes and the Joshes and do something, we'll make a difference, right? Just bring people on board. Those people that don't want to behave well with the stream, that the social pressure will turn them around slowly, you know, and because everyone wants to be part of the community. So that's what we're doing. These are our stats from 2024. We want to times that by 10 for 25. So we basically had 239 traps in operation, 12 monthly meetings, 2 kindergarten visits, 2 school programs, 2 scout meetings, 3 rubbish cleanups, a water quality school event, and 665 total catches. So yeah, that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. That's like really awesome. I just wonder if Josh, we've been introduced Josh. Josh is the air quality man from Kaikorai Valley. Perhaps Josh, you should go up in front and Rachel or someone Rachel or someone may be able to get a photo with you, and then you might end up on Facebook. Paul and Josh, it's quite really inspirational. At the end of the day, it's the Charlottes and the Joshes of the world that are going to be making the difference. So congratulations for what you're doing and kicking it off. It's really, like you've got a big task in front of you, but you're actually taking it one bite at a time and starting to talk to, across all levels in the Kaikorai Valley, from industrial to the push at the top. So we can only commend you, your efforts, and just really give you your support, and we can only support you how we can. We got we have a couple of quick questions. Sorry. Tom here.
Paul, love your work, and I understand that you've had some assistance from Otago catchment groups. Is that helping you in any way at all, or what other financial sort of assistance do you need? Have you got any big plans, like exposing some of the river that's under the road or anything like that?
Yeah, so big questions. Our biggest challenge is trying to find funding for wages. So we've got so many people coming at us that are, what about this, what about that, and what we actually need is money for wages for coordinators. So we've had support through Otago catchment communities, and it's been really, really, really helpful in getting things going. We've had private donations, we've had other people, we had a couple of bequests, stuff like that. That's been very helpful. But the one thing that's the hardest to get funding for is for wages, and try. If we had that, we'd have that coordination of all those volunteers, right? We could bring that stuff together. The worst thing you can do to a volunteer when someone turns up all keen is not be organised, right? And what we've found is if you give them a really good job description, give them a good job, they'll go and do it. But you need to be coordinated for that. So that's our biggest challenge. As far as how far do we want to take it and where do we want to go? Want to go all the way. Let's see what we can do, But it's about building a resilient organisation that goes beyond us and keeps growing that in 100 years, 200 years. Imagine that, it's still going. It'd be amazing.
Thank you, Paul. Alan got his hand up first, I think. Just going to go to quick questions. And
Great to hear that. Look, Paul and Josh, what's been your experience of getting support from local businesses?
The businesses are helpful, and they're on side with what we're trying to do, because they all want to be part of the community, or they live in the community. The challenge for them is always time. Everyone's time poor, and they don't have a lot of cash sitting around waiting to spend. But there are people that do want to support us. In particular, Dines have been really, really supportive of us. But they're real grassroots. That's their whole style, right? So that, right, we're doing business in the valley. You guys are in the valley trying to do something. I'll support you. So when we initially asked them for a shipping container, and you can't get them because it was COVID times, and then next thing you know, there's a shed running up on a forklift just screaming up the road, and that's outside our place, and away we go.
awesome. Elliot, you have a quick question?
Yeah, just want to follow up on that. Mention of paid staff. I just wanted to check. Do you have any paid staff at the moment, or is it entirely volunteers?
We have a coordinator who's currently doing 7 hours a week, which is about enough time to answer the emails that are coming in.
Thank you, Paul. Again, thank you for your time. It's very inspirational what you're doing and kicking off, and good job, but sure we've got the right man for it, and with Josh's help, he'll be in behind pushing you along, no doubt. So thank you very much for your time.
Nice, thank you.
Next up we have Steph Scott from East Otago. If you come to the front, Steph's East Otago catchment group is probably one of the most active catchment groups in the Otago region. Currently, there's got quite a number of projects going, most of them coordinated by Steph. And so it's really appropriate, a good time to have Steph come and talk to us.
Hi everyone, I'm Steph, as Lloyd introduced me, and I am the coordinator with the East Otago Catchment Group. We've been going since about 2019, and we kind of started after, I think a couple of farmers in our area might have, there's some questions around water quality, and I think on the back of that there was some discussions around starting up a catchment group and going from there. So yeah, we started in about 2019, and I've been in the role since about 2022, I think. Yeah. So our purpose for our group is water and biodiversity that reflects protective, empowered, and connected community. This is just a map of the area that we cover. So we include the Shag-Waihemo River, the Waikouaiti River, the Pleasant Te Hakapupu catchment, Post Office Creek, and Stony Creek as well. So in total, it's about 112,000 hectares. It incorporates the Waikouaiti Township, Karitane, Palmerston. We go right up the Pig Route, and we also include Macraes and the mine. And those are some of our goals that are part of our vision. I just thought I'd just take you through some of the projects and some of the that we've been working on over the last year, kind of couple of years. So as you will be aware about the Takapupu catchment project, the catchment group have been involved collaborating with this project with the regional council and the Rūnaka. Lately, we have helped facilitate and run a fish passage workshop, which we really tried to target with contractors to get them along to try and understand how they can install culverts to make them fish friendly. We've got someone from our catchment group is involved in partnership meetings, and we've had input into the catchment action plan. And then ongoing and in the future, we've been involved recently with the project team working on project succession. And we had the OCC facilitating that, and also looking at running in the very near future some funding, developing a pest management strategy with Te Hakapupu catchment and the landowners in there, and just helping transition out of that Jobs for Nature funding into, I suppose, beyond that, and keeping the project going in the momentum. One of our projects that we have is a couple of years ago, we got funding from MPI to do integrated farm planning in our with our farmers in our catchments, which we changed the name to Farming with Confidence. So we've got about 330,000 to spend over 4 years. It finishes in June next year. We run workshops with our farmers on anything to do with biodiversity, biosecurity, freshwater, doing stream health assessments, soils. There's about 8 to 9 workshops that farmers come along to over the course of about a year, 9 months to a year, and to help them write their own farm plan. Everything we do is working towards FAP Plus, which is a farm assurance plan. And so hopefully at the end of it, farmers come out with a plan they can be confident in. At the moment, we've got a third group going. It's been really hard to keep the momentum going with the whole pause on freshwater farm plans with this project. So we are waiting in anticipation for a decision. We have got funding to do a 4th group, but we aren't going to start that until we get some certainty around what's actually happening in that space. As part of that funding, we've got dollars to spend on community events, which is really cool. So last year we had the Aquavan come through all the schools in East Otago to do work with them and teach them about how catchment works and about water quality. We've also had recent events this year. We had a rural waste event about a month ago on how to deal with your rural waste on farm. And then tomorrow I'm in a workshop with about 16 farmers from our area working on understanding your farm financials. So that will be fun. One of our other projects, which has just kind of recently come to a close, is we was in partnership with the Kati Hurapa, we did 9 months of water quality monitoring in Post Office Creek or Waipaku Creek now, which is Waikouaiti within the Waikouaiti Township and the racecourse and kind of north of Waikouaiti. So every month I took the kids down and we measured sediment and temperature in the catchment at 3 locations. And then we also did every second month, we did chemical testing. And then we did pest monitoring with EnviroSchools. And we had a day doing eDNA testing and looking at those results. And we did stream health testing, and we set eel nets and fish nets to see what was living in the catchment. This was really good. We're working with Waikouaiti Primary School, and it was in partnership with the Runaka, which was really good. And we had lots of other EnviroSchools were involved, and OCC as well. We've recently presented all the results to the community, and we've got some ideas on where we'd like to move forward. The results came up that there is some issues in that catchment around sediment, phosphorus, and E. coli. This started another discussion and some more funding, and we got some modelling done through a company called Collaborations in Wellington. And I'd seen some similar modelling done on a New Zealand Landcare course that I was doing in Christchurch and with this company. And I suppose having those issues pop up, and as a catchment, it's really hard to decide where do you start when you've got an issue. Where are we going to get best bang for buck? Deciding on how we can actually help. Where are we going to spend money that will actually make a difference? So this modelling is based, this modelling has been done, and one of the reasons it's been successful is it's got LiDAR. So I heavily encourage, if you've got for LiDAR mapping to be done throughout Otago, because I know there's gaps. What they've modelled here in this picture is these are the different watersheds. I think it's the top 100 where sediment is the main issue, and the darker the colour, the higher the sediment load. So you can see there's 3 there that are probably the 3 worst watersheds within the Post Office Creek catchment. So zooming in on one of them, this is a great tool. It then gives me the information about that watershed, and it goes about potentially how much sediment potentially comes off that within that space. And if we were to do mitigation, what size mitigation we would potentially need to help mitigate that, the sediment coming off there. So that's a great starting point for us as a catchment to focus potentially. We've got some sites, we know what we can do, and we could have a way forward there. Within this tool as well, we've also got, I've mapped the top 5% with erosion and all the vegetation, and just recently I've also got them to map all the soils, aspects, topography and slope within there. So then within this tool, I've now got all the maps for our farmers if they require them for FAP Plus or freshwater farm plans moving forward. So we do some community planting sites. We've got Anderson's Lagoon out on the east side of Puketapu, where we've been doing some planting with the landowner there who had one of the early QE2 sites in Otago. So we had a big planting day with the whole of Palmerston School, and then we had Westpac volunteers back to help. We also incorporated doing some stream health work and marine metre squared work in there as well, just for the kids to understand what's happening in that catchment. We put on community events. So last year we put on the Bitches Box at the Dunback Hall, and this year we put on Jackie Clark in the Waikouaiti Event Centre. So in our strategic plan, we do have it that we like to put on one event a year just for our community that's not around anything to do with regulation or water quality or biodiversity, and they're always very well received and well attended. And recently we've done a pest trapping workshop with the Mammalian Corrections Unit, who do some great work up around Hikuroa and the landowners up there. And there was just some questions about getting from landowners understanding what pest trapping, what traps are out there and what they can be used. The guys that ran it, quite a different feel to what they normally do, working with volunteers, whereas all our attendees were landowners who wanted to know how much a trap was going to cost, which was going to be the best one, as opposed to how to use it. So this is another project, 3-year one in the Upper Shag and Pigroot Creek and Siberia Creek. We're actually working with the ORC science team here with Pete Ravenscroft, improving habitat for the Taieri flathead galaxid. And we've had this has been funded by the ORC Eco Fund for 3 years. So they've got a team up there removing trout in these 2 tributaries. So in the first year, they removed 2,700 trout. And I just had a catch up with Pete this morning, and they've removed 600 in Siberia Creek and 168 in Pigroot Creek, which the numbers are definitely a whole lot lower, particularly in Pigroot Creek. So things are looking really positive up there. And in the next 12 months, we've got quite a bit on. We're trying to get ag recovery site in East Otago for our farmers. We've got our pest management strategy for the Takapū catchment to work on. We've got that GIS tool that I showed you. We've all been really impressed with that. So we are potentially going to do some work around that and maybe look if we can get it funded for Waikouaiti catchment. We are working with the ORC science team again with Mark Crawford on potentially doing some overseer work with farmers in our area. Another year of trout removal, supporting our farmers with freshwater farm plans whenever that eventuates. We'd really like to build up engagement in the Waikouaiti catchment, so doing something in that space. We've got our AGM, more planting days and maintenance, more funding applications. We'll revisit our strategic plan, keep working with the schools and collaborating with other great organisations. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Steph. As I said, it's a very busy space that you live in.
Yes.
And I'm just going to have my first little comment. Congratulations, you've given us a classic example of identifying a risk and then zoning in the risk area to getting the information you need to be able to create mitigations in your post office creek. So I think that's really awesome what's going on there. That's a bit that perhaps really pricks my ears up.
Yeah.
Because I think that can be replicated around a lot of areas. But we will have a couple of questions. Okay.
Thank you. Really impressive work. The question I've got, and I don't want anyone in the room to think this is a negative question because you look up there and you see all your partners in there and very glad to see ORC in there. Yesterday we had a really good report presented to us on finding the title, the Otago Region Intertidal Sedimentation Monitoring Summary for 24-25, and it covered quite a few of the estuaries in your area.
Yeah.
And just wondering, how well are we giving you that sort of information, or how helpful was that? I don't know if you've got that particular report yet, just able to hear yesterday, but getting that sort of information and sharing that sort of science and then transcribing it to benefit your community.
Yeah, definitely relevant. I haven't seen the report, but I think it would be, considering I think sediment is the main issue in most of our catchments, that would be, definitely worthwhile seeing and, seeing how we can get that information to landowners. In a way that's, they can understand maybe how they can, on their land, how they can improve what they're doing.
Well, the good thing is there's some good results there for your communities too. But the other part of that is it that getting down to that area of even having and knowing that work's happening and maybe having people watching it happen, understanding that so that we're working more hand in glove rather than separately in some of those projects. Would that be? I mean, this wasn't our staff; it was specialists going out there.
Yeah.
But is there some benefit in people knowing that's happening?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. I've got a question from Alexa, then a really short, quick one from Andrew.
Just be quick. I'm just thinking about, you talked about getting off your funding from OIC. Is that even possible, and should it be a thing that we're thinking about?
Do you mean in regards to the
keeping your work going?
Oh, keeping our work going. Yeah. So I mean, we are funded. So for my role, we get funding from the OCC every year. Waitaki District Council and the mine are quite generous at giving us some funding about every couple of years. So that's helps to keep me ticking along. And then the OCC, obviously, we tap into them as well for project work as well. So, but yeah, so definitely keeping, I suppose, funding through those channels, through the OCC channel, is really important for us.
Is that a big part of your job? Trying to keep that funding going?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, funding applications. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And reporting. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew.
You just mentioned about the mine, Steph.
Yeah.
Opportunities to collaborate with some of the work that they're required to do to enhance the environment, that the catchment group are working in collaboration at all with them?
Yeah, so we could definitely. So we have a mine representative on the committee. So they haven't come up with any opportunities yet, but I think, yeah, there could be in the future. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Steph. It's really awesome to give your time, come down here and share with us, and really inspiring to see all the work that's happening on the ground. So that's awesome. And just before I'd just like to recognise Craig Simpson over in the corner. Craig's the manager, I suppose, of the Target Catchment community. So his input behind the scenes is not insignificant as well. So, and obviously recognising our Target Regional Council role in that as well. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on with our day, councillors. It was really pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
First of all, where are we up to? Apologies, confirmation of the minutes. There's been no additions or changes to confirmation of the agenda, I think. So there's been no additions or changes to the agenda, so we can take that as read. Declarations of interest, just remind councillors to stand aside in decision making if conflicts arises. Further the minutes from the last meeting. Yes, so the minutes for the meeting of the 5th of March. So the minutes have been circulated. Is anybody prepared to? Okay, you happy to move to true and correct? Seconder. Thank you, Andrew. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you all against. Carried. Open actions. There's no open actions, so we can continue from there and move straight on to item 9.1. So I'm waking up my laptop. So item number 1 is the Waipakata update. So we've got Libby up front with Joe, and I'd just like to introduce on screen. We have Yana Davis, Te Papu Atane, and Mike Hannah from Friends of Lake Hayes, Nui Korua. Welcome to the Regional Council. We'll just let Libby introduce the paper, and then I believe you're going to do a bit of a presentation to us, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you, Libby.
Thank you. So this paper is covering off the Waifakaata project, which commenced from an ORC support perspective in 2021. And there's much effort and work that the community in Mana Whenua have been doing in this catchment prior to this. And so we're lucky to have Jana and Mike here today online. And so Jana Davis is the Mana Whenua rep, and he's the chair of the Waifakaata strategy group. And Mike Hanf is from Friends of Lake Hayes, which I said. So this paper provides an update on our water quality enhancement work led by ORC, and it also seeks endorsement of the Waifakaata strategy. So any questions for me or for Jana and Mike? And I'm not sure whether Jana or Mike would like to say anything before questions. We'll leave it to them.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ki te kunihira o te rohi o tākau, he mihi nui mō tō tautoko ki Waifakaata, ki Taiao hoki, kia koe Gretchen, me koe hoki Lloyd, e Homa Rich, of course the amazing Libby Caldwell, tēnā koe Homa. I'm here with the man that started it all with me, Mike Hanf, the chair of Waifakaata, Friends of Lake Hayes, and I'm here representing Kaitahu ki Mirihiku, ka uri o Kaitahu, ka runako o tēnei takiwā, ka nui te mihi, e noho mai, nei raro I te marumaru o matamata nā Waifakaata. Kia ora hoki. So whānau, it's been a long time coming, getting the strategy in place, and I can genuinely say, having grown up in the Waifakaata catchment my whole life, it has been an absolute privilege to be on this journey that's helped bring a lot of partners together The Waifakata Strategy Group is made up of 2 mana whenua reps, myself from the Deep South, and also a group of another mana wahine from the Northern Runaka. And we're both been reporting through to Te Ao Marama and Ōkaha. We've got David Butt, the General Manager from Department of Conservation, the amazing Livy Caldwell, Mike Hamp, Friends of Lake Hayes. And then on the QLDC representative, we've got Bill Nicol, who's also the chair of the Climate Reference Group. And so when you're looking at what we've got at the table, it's a group of people that really mean business strategically and moving that strategy into true delivery on the ground with real outcomes for our community, a big focus on water, sediment, and ultimately identity. So today, after many years of building relationships, we are here to seek the endorsement of the Waifakata strategy, built on the values of community and whenua, recognising mātou raka, and of course, Western science. This is a data-driven relational strategy built on lived experience from all different types of people in the catchment. It's an interesting catchment, 42 kilometres in length. Takes 1.8 years for the lake to turn itself over. We've got golf courses, ski fields, farms, developments, and a lot of opportunity to get it right. If we can get it right in a small catchment like this, the hope is that we can take this to other catchments around the Takiwa. And I can also say that is happening right now. We, as an iwi, have been coming together in the background, comparing notes and comparing things that are working, having after action reviews, and sharing kōrero on the good, the bad, the ugly, what's working, what's not. Tahuna, Whakatipu Wai Māori, we're the fastest growing region in Aotearoa. $1.3 billion in debt. We've got issues around water, and we've got issues around identity. So the endorsement of this strategy couldn't come along at a better time. So with this growth comes an increasing pressure on our freshwater, land use, infrastructure, and with that, a greater need for shared responsibility. And Waifakata has been at the centre of that challenge. How do we find our ceiling and grow at the same time? You will have seen possibly recently our chair, Justin Tipa, our kaiwhakahaere at one of the infrastructure hui's up north. The Ngāi Tahu Takiwa is open for business through equity and inclusion. We are all for development, sustainable development within our Takiwa. And for me, the story of freshwater starts up in the headwaters in Queenstown. From when the first bit of snow touches those mountains, fills those lakes and hits you guys down on the coast, you've got to drink it. So we've got to get it right up here. We have a higher responsibility in the headwaters to get it right. We are very motivated to get it right in the Waifakata catchment. So we've got these 10 objectives within the strategy: utu, why, a Kiuta ki tai approach, mahika kai values, matching use with Māori, kaupapa Māori in science, informed restoration, whakawhanaukataka, te ohaka, building capability. All of these objectives have been deliberately and strategically put into this catchment to help our communities thrive and have a better understanding of what it means to have a community partnership approach to an amazing strategy. We have started to engage with a bunch of different commercial operators within the catchment who are just singing out for this type of kōrero that they can actually use to put into their businesses and actually really be part of an integrated approach. If we can't get it right in a $1 billion local economy, where can we get it right? You know, we've got more resources in the headwaters to get it right. And talking with whānau down in the Catlins, out in the middle of nowhere, if we are taking an integrated approach, then it's these types of strategies, when successful, that we can start sharing the profits, sharing the information, and ultimately keeping to mature the process. So the Waifakata strategy has been also supported in the wider region already. It's been great for me because we've actually started strengthening the way that we are communicating within our Ngāi Tahu ecosystem. You know, how we're reporting through to environmental entities like Te Ao Marama and Ōkaha, and getting information back to our Papatipu Runaka as well, wrapping support around elected representatives and ultimately maturing the whole process. So the fact that this has taken a while to come about, is actually a really good thing, because we've been really careful and deliberate about how we want the strategy to look and move, and putting a stamp on it. We've been maturing other frameworks guided by other kaitahu representation and catchment groups. So this is almost like a bit of a blueprint, and it was intended as such that other catchment groups could pick up and just see how we flow, what type of representation we might want to have. And it's also started being, the framework is starting to mature into other strategies within the Upper Lakes. We're on a mission to unpack these learnings that we've had along the way, share them openly, talk about the issues, and a lot of kōrero that's come about from the strategy and listening to the other catchment groups today is, what are the real short, medium, and long-term priorities and issues, and where do we start? You know, we've got different community groups running on the smell of an oily rag, and yet we're also trying to take an intergenerational approach, and that's a really good strength with the strategy. It's about acknowledging all the different priorities in the catchment. So next steps, so by examining this strategy and those short, medium, and long-term approaches, the next step is to prioritise the integrated catchment management of Waifakata, socially, culturally, economically, environmentally. What does that look like in the next steps? So with endorsement today, we're moving from vision to action. But as many of the councillors know who've been in the catchment, there's already a lot going on. It's a busy catchment. There's a lot of different groups doing a lot of awesome stuff. So a lot of this is actually happening in parallel, which is great. So after this endorsement, our next steps is to establish a collaborative governance model and beginning to understand which of the restoration projects and management that we need to prioritise. A big issue within Waifakata is sediment control. So getting a really good understanding of the commercial landscape around sediment control is important for us. It's important for us to understand how much it's going to cost annually, so we can build a plan with commercial operators within the catchment to help with the sediment removal. And it's that type of business plan that we want to get on the shelf and send it to our home bases and spread it out to the world. We will work with mana whenua, community groups, local government, landowners to co-design these next phases. There's significant work happening within Millbrook and also Airburn, who have just been amazing to work with, putting an exemplary sort of water management plan in place. These monitoring frameworks are going to be co-developed through Western Science and Mātauranga Māori. And yeah, essentially, we're still just past the starting line, but we've got a good foundation in place. So just in closing, these strategies, they're not documents to sit on a shelf. They're live documents. We expect them to be in every business, in every house within the Waifakata strategy. This is also about accountability and restoring our relationship with place. So Libby, e ho mā, tēnā koe, it's been awesome so far, and looking forward to opening the next chapter with you. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora, Jana. That was really an awesome introduction to the paper. Thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for both yourself and Mike for hosting the council about a month ago up on Coronet and seeing the good mahi you've been doing. We've probably not too much more to say, to be fair, but thank you very much. We have got some questions. I've got a question first from Councillor Laws online, and then Councillor Ware, Elliot. Thank you.
Yes, my question is contained on paragraph 13, where there are a list of objectives that range from A to J. And I'm not sure what they mean, given that I'm expected to endorse them today. So perhaps you could explain them to me individually.
Paragraph 13.
Jana, that's in our paper. It's the points that the purpose of the strategy that you went through before. So utu, wai, hiuta, ki tai, those 10 there.
Ka pai. Well,
thank you.
Let's start with one.
Well, can we start from the top? I've asked for all 10.
Oh, fine, no problem. So objective number 1, it says utu/reciprocity. And what reciprocity means, it means I'm going to give value where value is returned. The meaning of reciprocity. So how would you take that from a vision document and then actually move it into an implementation plan in the way that you might be acting within the catchment, from a business perspective, from a private landowner perspective, from a farming perspective? I guess the opportunity around utu and reciprocity is actually working with the strategy group to understand where the priorities are and where the issues are within the catchment, and how we might turn that opportunity or that objective into an actionable outcome. Objective number 2, why translates to water. So the modi of the why is restored, and with the natural function and water quality of Waifakata reflecting the name of the lake. So what does that mean? From a Western science perspective, it means we definitely need to understand the different nutrient loads that are entering into the lake and form a really robust plan around what is the optimum levels of nutrients that we need to see entering into the lake to reach our objectives. But modi is probably not something for the strategy group to be explaining when we've reached it. That's for Papatipu Rūnaka. And working with Papatipu Rūnaka to define modi within the catchment is part of, I guess, a strategy that they would want to develop themselves. But it is a key part of the strategy, a key objective within the strategy. Kiuta ki tai, this is my favorite word. This is about, Kiuta ki tai is about a mountains to the sea approach. And I guess living down in Dunedin, that would be a really important sort of objective to build into all of our programs with the integrated catchment management plan that's hopefully going to be coming out soon.
John, Lloyd here, John. Thanks very much. You're doing a really good job. I just before we go through them all, I think Michael, on page 17 of the notes, as the objectives are set out there, it might be a good idea. And 24, if you refer back to them, then ask some specific questions.
Well, I am asking
That'd be all right, Mike.
question.
Point of order.
You can't get more specific than that.
I'll call point of order. A question has been asked. Can we not hear the answer? Because I'm really interested in the answer from Jana, specifically.
The next one's my favourite one. So Mahika Kai.
Okay, we'll keep going.
So I guess that, yeah, Kiuta ki tai, this is about genuinely, it's about taking the mountains to the sea, understanding of how this strategy is affecting the wider ecosystem, right? So it's really important that the group within the headwaters is understanding the effects or the downstream effect. It's important that the strategy group stays on top of that data, that knowledge, because ultimately it's going to help us understanding how the strategy is taking effect. Mahika Kai, this is a great one. Like, I grew up at Dalefield. I did not grow up knowing the name Waifakata that my tipuna named it. We were working with a bunch of different operators within the catchment. You know, growing up at Dalefield, not knowing the name, you know, it wasn't even until a few years ago that we realised that there was still freshwater coda within the catchment. And so we've been working with a bunch of different groups within the catchment to help restore that value around freshwater coda. It's not necessarily about eating them, but I'd definitely like to give it a go sometime in the next few years. I would love to see freshwater coda within that creek rather than just goldfish swimming around a golf course. There's other Mahika Kai values within the catchment that hold great significance to Kaitahu and provide great opportunities for learning and education, like the Raupo, the reeds for building mokahi, river crafts, and really just talking about, you know, the characteristics of the catchment. Matching use, capability and modi. The modi of Waifakata is sustained through land use activities that reflect land capability and environmental limits. So what are those limits? When you're looking at the way we are developing in Queenstown, I think it's fair to say that we are not taking a long-term view to development. It's just build, build, build. One of the, the last sort of bastions of whenua within the Waifakata catchment is along the Mill Creek. And so working with the community to really understand what is the true future valley of the whole catchment in 200 years' time. What happens if we get it right? What happens if we get it wrong? Growth is coming. The growth in Queenstown is coming. It's real. So we're wanting to really use this strategy to help understand the future state of the whole valley so that we can make sure when it does get developed, and if it does, it happens under the right pretense. Objective number 6, kaupapa Māori and science monitoring. Intertwining our fates as Māori and Pākehā and making the best of both worlds for the betterment of the catchment. There's so much monitoring happening in this catchment already. All of the schools, thousands of kids. You pull your hair out, but it's still worth it. So we really want to understand what are the different indicators that we need to be measuring within the catchment from a Mātauraka Māori perspective and a Western science perspective. Using those two groups of indicators, we'll start measuring different data points, which will ultimately help us understand how the catchment's growing, healing, and how we're passing on information to the next generation. I never had those opportunities growing up here in Queenstown as a kid. So having a bunch of different charities working in that space it's really fantastic. A lot of support from the council as well around that with the QLDC. Informed restoration. Contaminant monitoring is informing decision-making to restore Waifakata's ecological systems back to their natural nutrient levels and whole order. So Mike could talk your ear off about this, but we've come a long way around data monitoring. And the next question is, how are we monitoring and communicating the amount of sediment that is arriving at the lake, the amount of nutrient loads arriving at the lake. So getting monitoring stations throughout the whole catchment, but then also just being really realistic with after a big rain event, what is happening to those nutrient levels in the lake. Historically, before we had monitoring equipment within the catchment, what was happening is you weren't really getting a true indication of what monitoring was actually getting taken place, because we were only really monitoring when it was kind of like a nice day. Now the monitoring is happening in real time, 24/7, and we're getting a really accurate understanding of the lake's position. I guess the point around this too is it's not just citizen science. It's wanting to really make sure that we're maturing this process, because we can't throw all the funding at the wall. It's not going to work. We actually need the community to be doing the work with us and for us. And so that's why I've loved about this strategy is, I think, and I hope Livy will back me up on this, we've got a lot of bang for our buck with getting these strategies together, and then using the knowledge that we have within the group to help community groups navigate better in this ecosystem that we're in. And whether that's for funding or support or science, or understanding what the best sort of technology is to use, that's been a good part of why the group's existed. Whakawhanaukataka, collaborative action. It's probably one of the core objectives of the group is look at everything that we've achieved, having the right partners in the room. As the strategy has developed, we've moved people in and out of the strategy group. So when we were dealing with the Ladies Mile development, we had some different representatives from QLDC to make sure we navigated that a little bit safer. Then when we moved into strategy, climate reference group, different manager from DOC. Hopefully I won't get kicked out after we finish the strategy, but there we go. So whakawhanaukataka is all about relationships and having the right people in the room with you. So when we do an implementation plan, that objective would flow into one of the implementation actions within the strategy itself. Te ohanga or te ohaka, socioeconomics. This is a really important one, because this is hopefully one of the objectives that we want to be able to push into commercial operators within the catchment. And we've been really deliberate with the wording here. Economic activity in the Waifakata catchment is expected to restore the natural balance, ensuring tangible benefits for Te Taiao, which is the natural world, and the wider community. So really working with the community here to understand where the priorities are within the catchment, working with those commercial operators within the catchment like Millbrook, Ayrburn, and NZ Ski, and really working with them to understand how we need their support to prioritise the betterment of the health of the catchment itself. Objective number 10, capability, capacity, and knowledge systems. Diverse knowledge systems enhance capability and capacity amongst the strategy partners. We want to use the right tool for the job every time. And in this growing world, we want to make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve. So part of the next step of delivering this objective is getting the right tools into the strategy. So we've kind of got one home base to make sure that we're storing data and knowledge in the right spaces. So working with Ngāi Tahu, you know, what systems are Papatopi Rūnaka using, ORC, QLDC, and then ultimately what are we going to use down in the catchment? So yeah, Kilda, I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you. Listen, the reason I asked you to expand was because it wasn't immediately clear what the detail of it was from the 10 points that were in the strategy paper. Can I take you then to socioeconomics, because there seems to be a mutual contradiction there. And you've just explained that te ahanga, or socioeconomics number 9, will restore the natural balance. But then you've talked about the variety of commercial operators in the catchment, including Millbrook, New Zealand Ski, etc., who are clearly not natural and have enhanced or the environment, well, not the environment, but the vicinity for commercial activity and obviously socioeconomic gain. I don't understand how those two can exist in the same context. Could you explain, please?
Have you never seen a business try and use their business for the betterment of the space in which they're operating in?
But they are clearly not operating to restore the natural balance, are they? There's a difference.
Well, I guess if they're
Millbrook is hardly,
if they're working with the strategy
restoring the
group,
natural balance.
is Millbrook restoring the natural balance? Well, I think they're okay. Fair question. I'll finish this one. So 5 years ago, when we started the strategy, I could say they're definitely in a different place than where they're at now. And having spent 37 glorious years in this catchment, from when I was a little boy, going down to Millbrook and watching Kenny Rogers to where we're at now, I can honestly, hand on heart, say that these operators are different to where they were 20 years ago. And that's due to a whole variety of things. But the cumulative impacts in the catchment are real, and it's not just one operator. So understanding how we're going to work with those operators, talking about data. 5 years ago, we weren't removing as much sediment with these commercial operators as we are today. That's a big change as a result of it, like these key drivers within the strategy. Is there room for improvement? Always. It's continuous improvement. You know, you've got, but just down the road, down in Ayrburn, you look at how they're operating down there. They're actually setting an exemplary way of looking after their water. It's cleaner when it goes out than when it comes in. And you only need to get that data happening so much before everyone up the catchment must rise to the occasion, because that's essentially the expectation. But mate, they're all on the waka. They're all on their journey. They're working with all of the right charities right now. Millbrook is working with the Mana Tahuna Charitable Trust to remove a whole bunch of sediment, and they've spent months and months working on that plan together. So from my perspective, is it perfect? No, but it's never been perfect, but they're moving in the right direction.
No, listen, the question was more around, you're clearly not restoring a natural balance, because man-made activity is a key component of the catchment. I just wanted to understand what you meant by the word restoring natural balance.
Michael, we're going to move on now. It's getting into a debate here. We've got some.
It's not a debate. It's not a debate. It's a question.
Michael, we're going to move on.
I'm happy to answer that.
I've asked a question.
No, we're going to move on. We're going to move on now.
For fuck's sake.
Elliot, you have a question?
Jesus.
Sorry, mate. You come up and have a look, and we'll go get some xenon, and I'll show you what natural balance looks like.
Well, it sure won't look like it's man-made development.
Well, come and pull a coda out of the creek with me, mate, and I'll show you some natural balance.
I think you're talking through a horse to a hat.
So yes, I think, yeah, we're just gonna move on. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Janet and Libby. I'm just wondering, probably a question for Libby. Do we have an idea yet of how this work will sort of fit in our wider integrated catchment work? And I know there were sort of 3 next steps outlined, and if this is expected to be incorporated into that work, which of those 3 steps is that sort of commencing?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the Waifakaata catchment sits within the Upper Lakes Integrated Catchment Management work as well, which is underway at the moment. So this is a perfect document to sit within that and to help inform it.
So this would inform discussions around the catchment action plan or something like that.
So it sits on its own, but it can also feed into the wider catchment action plan that's being developed right now. It goes both ways.
It's also looking at getting endorsed with the QLDC councillor for the Upper Lakes biodiversity strategy. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you. We have Alexa, then Kate.
Well, I just want to actually move this motion. I think we need to get on with it. And I'd like to move all 3, but do you have more questions?
Yeah, you can do that after the motion's most.
Questions first.
Okay, we'll just foreshadow that, and we'll just carry on with the questions. We've got Kate, and then we've got Kevin, and then we've got Andrew.
Thank you. Look, I've got 2 questions, and one you may not even put, and because you've been saying debating it, but I'm going to ask a question first. On this page 30 of our agenda, you've got 3 steps, and I just want to check the process here because I want to make sure what I think has happened in the background, and with people like Mike Hampton there's been quite a lot, and QLDC, not taking away from the partners' contribution, there's actually been quite a lot of community input into this by representatives of the community already. Because step 3 says engage with the Waifakaata community to begin dialogue about priority actions, but that doesn't mean that communication hasn't already started, does it? And
no, it doesn't. So Mike's been an integral part of delivering this strategy and is a representative of Friends of Black Haze.
Thank you. And this is the question I'm going to ask Jana, because we had it was an amazing tour, thank you, up on the mountain. But you and I had a very brief conversation about harakeke. We had a brilliant slide in an earlier presentation. I don't know if you're online there about harakeke harvesting, but you talked about how if that harakeke were in the catchment, how it could be used in the ski fields. Is that part of your thinking? When about commercialization or about finding a purpose for the Mahinga Kai values that you've got?
Absolutely. Yeah. This is about revitalising our taonga, because eventually everyone's going to remember just how bloody good it is. And we've actually got a lot to learn around Ngāi Tahu taonga species. With Mānuka, we lost New Zealand Inc.'s cultural IP on that taonga. You can now go over to Australia and get Mānuka with the Macron. And, we're wanting to really understand how do we start using, and genuinely it's korero like this that has come out from the strategy and working with groups. We should be able to work with, taonga like harakeke, and understand all of its uses that have really great benefits. That the harakeke piece was interesting. The genomes of harakeke are actually changing down in Te Waiponamu because we're importing a lot of different strains from up north. And so working with the weaving groups around different pā harakeke that exist. And then, we're working with an amazing company called Kiwi Fibre on the revitalisation of the harakeke fibre export market.
Thank you. And it was just that link that I think would be interesting for Mike to go and have a look at and where it sits with the industry in that area.
Thanks. Okay, Kevin.
And we'll be working with Te Nukuroa on that one too. Iho.
Right, Charlotte, thank you for your description of the 10 objectives. This is to me a new, there is a question and it will be to Libby. This is to me a new strategic document based on a mana whenua perspective and aligning with the Western, but that's what it appears to be. And until I've had that full explanation from you, which I think others that possibly were thinking the same as me, to hear your explanation of each of those is, I feel, is exceptionally valuable, certainly to me and others that may see this as quite a different way of doing things. And I'm just saying that because I think it's a very important explanation that you've given, and I thank you for that. So under our significance of engagement considerations, Libby, with this document, how have we discussed this with the community at large that will be actually engaging with us, with Charlotte and his teams?
We haven't done that yet. So the input to the into the strategy, is this what you're talking about, the development of the strategy?
No, if we are taking this strategy to to get approval from the community. So you're just saying updates consistent with council significant engagement policies. I'm just saying, what have we taken this community and are they happy with this policy?
Just want to make sure I understand the context here is that ORC is only a part of the strategy group as an equal partner with the community. So it's not, the onus is not on ORC to get approval or go and communicate it. That's really for the group to discuss, of which the community are a key part of. Mike is the key representative in determining how the community will best engage with the document. So I want to make sure we're clear on the context, because it's a little bit different from some of the other plans or strategies where ORC are potentially a lead in, and we've just got to be careful we don't overstep the role in terms of the partnership we've created with the other members of that group, and allow the group to determine the best way in which we go out and connect with the community and engage on this document. So as long as we
that's all right. Thank you for the explanation. Now I fully understand that. Thank you, much appreciated.
Can I just add one point to that, please? And it's really about genuinely working with the community to understand. A lot of the community are working to restore the health of the lake, and wanting to work with the community to help them align with these objectives so that we can wrap better support around them to navigate to achieve those objectives. And it's also about understanding where the issues are and how we're going to start mapping out an implementation plan around those issues using these objectives.
Thanks, Kevin. Henry?
Yeah, my question is probably for Joe or Libby. The report talks about, or the proposal talks about the sediment traps being maintained as we speak, literally. So my question is, did the strategy work trigger that maintenance work to occur, or was it more of a regulatory reminder in some way, shape or form? And what will trigger the ongoing maintenance of those sediment traps going forward for the people who are responsible for them?
So the strategy did not trigger the maintenance, but it will help with the ongoing maintenance of it as we communicate the value of that with the commercial operators such as Millbrook, who are doing the work right now. The sediment removal originated from all of the advocacy work that Mike has done, really. And that's prior to this strategy. It's a combination of years of work and advocacy for improving the health of the lake. We have assisted, ORC have assisted with ensuring that some of the sediment removal is occurring now, and that connects to the augmentation work that we're delivering, which should be commissioned very soon. And the reason for that is to ensure that the ponds where the water is going into are as clean as possible, so we don't cause sediment issues downstream as we discharge more water into the lake to flush it out. Is there anything you want to add there, Mike?
I would just say that's part of the implementation of what was put into the long-term plan back in the 2019 process. Really, we've just been carrying on with that work. it was driven by that. So the strategy to me sits over the top of a operational plan, which we have already started 5 years ago. So this sits on top of that, and then that plan will be expanded to include the other elements picked up by the strategy. So the bit on water and lakes that we've been concentrating on has already been running and sits under that nicely already. We've already drafted a plan that would fit around those 10 objectives. So we're a wee bit ahead of that. This is a step ahead, and part of that process will be to take that forward, and we'll need to grow that within our own community and make sure that we've got everything and we've got everybody on board. And then also we've got the other groups that we haven't really worked with in the past on this. So.
We want to get to a point where we genuinely understand the cost to get a consent in place, the cost to get a sediment trap in place that requires X amount roughly of tonnage of removal per annum, and then get down to like a tonnage rate for sediment removal. Ultimately, just like the Harakeke, we need to figure out, is there any commercial opportunities with the sediment removal so it's self-sustaining? But in the meantime, we've got objectives in there that can help us get a business case together, and then use that business case and priorities with commercial providers in the catchment to work together to help us get on top of that part of the management plan. Once we've got that business case together, you know, that's the next opportunity, is to share that whole package from consent to construction, civil construction, maintenance, business development, and we can go and give that to other catchment groups.
You know, I can just say one thing as well, is that the process around the strategy has fallen out of as well, because with Ayrburn has been a really interesting, and everyone probably knows the history of the Ayrburn, because it started off in the wrong direction, and through the Environment Court process and policies put in place in district plans and help of ORC, Ayrburn has gone from the worst operator to the best operator, and use this philosophy, if you like, as a test case of how you develop best practice in a catchment. And this latest fast track application that they're making is very much this document has very much steered our thinking on how to get them to improve water quality even further, and to take responsibility. And as part of that, they're taking responsibility for what's happening above them as much as what's happening in this on their land, and overall being part of an integrated approach to the whole catchment.
That's awesome. Thanks, Joe. Really full answers. We'll have a motion. Alexa, got a motion to go. Anybody like to second that motion? Okay, you second it? Yeah. So Alexa's made all three motions to make the report. Progress of supporting and delivering water quality enhancements on the Lake Hayes Waitaka catchment, and endorses the Waitaka strategy as a document that sets out the direction and principle for enhancing the environment of Lake Hayes. Do we have any debate?
I'll say my words for that.
Thanks, Alexis. Michael?
Thank you. I have some significant concerns about, as you would expect, the strategy document. And I'm there were two questions that got here. Has it been discussed with the community? And I think the IRC rep at the table said no. But then I'm sitting there and looking at Mike Hempf, who is obviously a prime community member, probably the prime community member, who I assume represents the community at these gatherings. I just like to say that when we first looked at Lake Hayes, we realised it was a lake under stress and distressed, and our primary aim still, I assume, because Mike talks about the operational plan, is to restore the lake and its surrounds to a much more healthy state than it is currently and was destined to head. I thought that was a relatively simple process, and it's now grown into a holistic one, which includes socio-economic, cultural, and social agendas as well. when I thought we had a pretty simple aim, which was just to simply make the lake and its surrounds healthier from an environmental perspective. So I'm uncomfortable.
Well, can I ask you a
I'm
question?
uncomfortable.
I'll ask you a
Sorry,
question.
hang on, sorry, we're in debate now, so there's no more discussion on the paper. So we'll just let the councillors debate and then they'll put the motions. Sorry, Michael.
So I think it's grown like topsy, and not a topsy that I was aware of until today, or at least receiving my council papers over the weekend. The second issue is, can I just say, it's not Western science, it's science. And there is in the documentary, I detect a suggestion that there is almost treaty principles being established here, which again is well beyond the intention of just simply restoring a lake to hopefully something approaching its natural state, but obviously compromised by human settlement and development, which certainly isn't going to end anytime soon. So I'm really uncomfortable with the 10 points of the strategy. I think we've moved well out beyond, we've moved well off the reservation in terms of what our original aim and orbit was. I loathe strategy documents anyhow because they never mean anything. They're all just words. And it's all about plans. And I don't have any concept of what all the strategy means in terms of the commitment of the Otago Regional Council and the amount of costs involved and the amount of ongoing work as a consequence. This paper, nor the background paper, have provided me with that information or level of comfort. For that reason, I'll be voting against the recommendation.
Great, thank you, Michael. Do you have any, Gretchen?
Thank you. Thank you very much to both Mike and Jana who have come along and presented today and answered lots of questions in full, but also for the continued dedication over our lifetimes in some instances in this area. We've had a lot of concepts that have been talked about today, but I think what's been really clear is that in working in any environment, we're working with the landscape, we're working with the water, we're working with the people, and that's what ecology is. It's what a natural environment is. People are part of the natural environment, and we can't separate the two. We can't say, oh, okay, the natural environment is something that doesn't have people. It's a pristine something that's, the natural environment includes people. It includes a really healthy system, and it needs people to be caring, to be working together. And that is what has been described here. It's not a baseless strategy. It's taken a whole lot of people, real people, to think about their real surroundings and think about how they're going to work together to get the outcomes that they want for their area. And we're a part of that, and a part that we should be really proud of as well. So this is the type of thing that we want to get to as a council, and we're getting there. So I'm really pleased with where we're at, and thanks heaps for coming along and presenting in person as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Gretchen. We'll go to quickly to Andrew.
Yeah, look, more than happy to support the recommendation. So I think it's worthwhile remembering that this particular Lake Hayes has been on our hit list for a long period of time. And I think the first strategy that was developed was back in the early 1990s. And I think by current, I see Chair's father, if I remember correctly, I may be wrong. But anyway, so Lake Hayes is obviously a lake that needs greater attention, and the strategy provides that framework. However, we need to acknowledge all the great work that has happened with the locals banding together and already creating a number of actions that are providing positive enhancement to the environment. So that's great, but I think this just helps to firm up overall a direction over a longer period of time with clear objectives, a clear vision, and some clear actions.
Thank you, Andrew. Gary?
Thank you. Yeah, I share some of the concerns that Michael has been raising, but I think this is actually going to be a really good example to let move through into the next stage. The holistic element of it is it really does conflict with my sort of engineering mind, and but certainly I was heartened by the discussion with Jana when we were up on the side of the hill and listening to the efforts that were being put in place. And then, of course, you have to acknowledge the work that Mike and the Friends of Blake Hayes and working with the Arrow Irrigation Company and others in the community to really advance some very acknowledgeable and very important changes to the lake. And I think it is on a very positive track. So for me, with this one, the holistic element, I tread with a level of cautiousness, but I'd be keen to see this one play out and see where it arrives at. So yeah, I'll be supporting. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Kate?
I'm really impressed with. Go back. We were very fortunate to do a site visit onto the site and to see this wide breadth of work happening in this catchment in a coordinated way. If it wasn't being coordinated through something like this, then it just wouldn't get the end results. And we've had 3 examples of really good coordination today on other projects that make that difference. If you don't bring everyone together to coordinate, then I just don't think we'll ever get those results. There is nothing surprising about having this report here, given the GHG report that came to this council, I think, before I was a councillor in 2019. It is just a progression of the work that has happened before and it's carrying on. It has taken some time, but it's amazing what has happened in that 6 years as well. You go to that site now and you see the plantings around the edge. The process hasn't stopped action, which is really, really exciting. But what this is just increasing the scale and targeting the next stages that will mean that the outcomes are even better. Congratulations to everyone involved. There has been a huge amount of work, and what a joy it was to go and see so many families, so many locals on the site, enjoying it, walking it around the lake in a much better environment than it was not that long ago, but with real hope that it's going to be even better in the not too short term.
Thanks, Kate. I can go to Alexa now.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It's great to see the strategy that is, of course, not ours. It's a true collaborative strategy, and as such, may it have great success, and I have real hope that it will. The 95 strategy was an excellent scientific document, but couldn't ultimately be delivered. And possibly that was because it didn't have this vast network that held it in place and allowed its delivery. I'm hopeful that the collaborative nature of this strategy will underpin its ultimate delivery and maybe even transform the way we normally do things. Thanks to ORC Senior Leadership Team and Strategy Group for its support for this work to happen. Of course, again, it's not our work, we're a partner, but we have offered a lot of support and knowledge to this. It's an example of us not having to lead from the front, but to empower others to help to lead us into the delivery of the strategic directions which we as a wider region have agreed. Mike actually said to me this morning that he'd like us to thank Gavin Palmer. So, and I acknowledge Gavin's work in this too, for leading ORC through this stage of the journey, which this stage started with the 2019 long-term plan process, where we put funding properly aside and well distributed into this program. But of course, the work's been going on much longer than that. And it's not the first time we've had a strong and good strategy for this lake, as I have talked about. However, this time it really is different. And from my perspective as the local councillor on the ground at the moment, it's been incredible to watch this work going from individuals such as Mike Hamp and various other local residents, and certainly to you, Jana, and what you as your force of nature has brought to this partnership as well, and bringing iwi along and just all sorts of work. And I'm really appreciative of that. And this partnership is displayed right here as Jana and Mike present to us today. The word partnership is what's so important and may in the end be the defining moment of this. Also really important here is the recognition of Coronet Peak, sitting at the top of this catchment and reflected on a good day in Waifakata, Lake Hayes. That lake mirrors a peak, which is a global name in snow sports and skiing, and a global name at the Olympics. And it has great significance to Maori and Pākehā people who live in her shadow and her catchment. This is a really important moment, an important lake and an important peak. So this is the embodiment, really, the strategy, which is beautiful work by Kawati. It's got beautiful illustrations and things that we can really hold on to there. And they're important as part of a strategy, actually. It's the embodiment of partnership, collaboration and planning coming together to produce not only tangible results, but also a scalable model for developing these restoration projects. Because it's brought together Mātauranga Māori and Western science, and they are both
No
science.
such thing as Western science.
Well, you can say whatever you like, Michael, but this is my perspective and I'm moving this. Mātauranga Māori and Western science have come together here into a strategy that show that these things, the sum of these things are far greater than just the two pieces. The opportunities seem to be opening up in front of this strategy, as you've alluded to, Kate. You've seen this, and all of us who visited that day have seen this. Recloaking, the restoration of Harakeke and possibly Kaura populations. There is heaps going on, and crowning all this is the social license that will now be required to develop in this strategy. That social license has shifted, and that will support the ongoing nature of these environmental restoration projects. The way forward won't be without its challenges, given the development plan for within the catchment, but the partnerships are such that the decision-making will happen between partners, businesses, councils, residents, environmental groups, all in positions to actually understand their impacts and hopefully be held accountable for them. I think we'll look back and see the adoption of this strategy as one of many transformational moments in the delivery of our environmental aspirations regionally. Thank you for that. And with that, I move those 3 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa. With that, I'll put the motion. All three motions, all three is one. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against?
No.
One against. Shall I have that recorded?
Sure.
Thanks, Michael. Motion carried. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen, Koroa, for your input today. It's been a full discussion, but it's been an important discussion and one that we needed to have. And we look forward to seeing the progress as you go from your objectives into your plan going forward. Thank you very much.
Tēnā koe e mātua. My tawa said to me, look after the island and the island will look after you. And my tā Tipene, he said to me a few years ago, if you only knew what they only know, you would probably think the same thing. Yeah, me kia ora mai tātou, a tēnā koutou. Come up and check the lake out soon. We look forward to having you. Kia ora.
Lovely. Thank you for that. We can now move on to item 9.2. Regional Pest Management Plan. So we'll have Murray come up to join Libby, no doubt. And we'll let Libby introduce the paper.
Thank you. So this paper presents the report and findings from the effectiveness review for the delivery of the Otago Regional Pest Management Plan, which is being prepared by Pure, and we've got Julius is online. Would you like to turn your camera on today? Thank you. And he was the main author of the report that's an attachment today. So he's here to answer any questions on the report. In summary, the review identified 12 areas where there is effective delivery of the objectives of the RPMP and 13 partial or ineffective. We have developed an implementation schedule and it has recommendations in it for how we will look to enhance our delivery. And those are in tables 4 and 5 of the report. So we are seeking endorsement of those recommendations. And just to note, this is the first time that the RPMP effectiveness review has been done. And it's a really important piece of work for us to inform the Regional Pest Management Plan review that's coming up. We have really good people here in our team that are involved in this work. And we know that biosecurity is a priority for our council and for our communities as well. So we're looking to improve as much as we can. Take any questions?
Thank you, Libby. Do we have questions? Gretchen.
Thanks. Awesome to have this report. Table 4, recommendations for effectiveness. Michael, you might not be muted at the moment. That's all good. We have got some that are high there, and they seem to be simplifying messaging, inspecting, enforcing, and using data, so being data informed. And they are able to be done by the starting on the 1st of July, and they're going to have low cost. So I'm just double checking that come 1st of July, we're going to be able to do all those things under pretty much current budgets. And I'd just like to hear, is it possible to do those things next year and have lower impact on budget?
So the intention is we start those things next year. It's not that we will necessarily get them all completed within the year, but we will get them underway and we can do that within current budgets.
Thank you, Libby. We have Michael.
Thank you. Can I ask, is it Julius? Julius, you've done a great job, mate. So this is exactly what we were looking for and confirmed all our worst fears as well, I have to say. Can I take you to page, you talked about monitoring gaps and data deficiencies, which is something I've been moaning about for a long time. Do we have the pests that we put in our pest destruction and a pest plant management plan, whether they're rabbits or old man's beard or everything in between sort of thing? Did you gain any data, or was there any data available for you to determine on a yearly basis whether that particular pest had increased, decreased, or stayed static in terms of either its population or its infestation?
Right. Thanks for your question. It's not just my work. I mean, it was a pretty good collaboration with the RSC team, particularly Murray Boardman, and we had some really good stakeholder engagement as well. So that was a really valuable mine, and I was glad I got involved. So thanks for that. In terms of your question, what RSC have done over the course, particular of the last years, is they have massively improved their data capture. And what they're able to do now is, for some pests, yes, they can tell you how the prevalence is changing. There's information, for instance, for rabbits. We referred to some prevalence data for rabbits in the report. That is feasible, where you can compare before and after comparison at different sites that are visited. So that is helpful. And others relate to Old Man's Beard, which I understand is a massive legacy pest in New Zealand, in Otago in particular. So albeit limited, it helps you for some pests. My understanding is that this system has been set up over the last couple of years, so it wasn't there right at the beginning of the RPMP. So the team invested time, muscle, and money to set up the system, and I believe that going forward, a lot more pests will be recorded with the system they have, which is using ArcGIS. So this is a geographic software. It pinpoints you where exactly the pest occurs, and RSC are using for rabbits, for instance, the modified McLean scale, which is a standard part, and for plant pest using another scale. So that gives you an idea, yes, theoretically, of how the pest prevalence for a specific pest will be changing going forward. Then there was some other data collection, for instance, where you have got more targeted monitoring and surveillance. There is WallIS, which is specifically for wallabies, and that also was giving us indication of how wallaby numbers, at least reported, are increasing over the years. So while it's not for all pests, there's information for some pests, in short.
Thank you.
You're mute.
And I also had one other quick question. You make the commentary, it's fairly strong throughout the report, of the ORC being reactive rather than proactive in terms of its pest strategy and its management. Can I ask you, and I imagine you want us to be proactive. So, for example, we might have discovered diatoms in Lake Wanaka long before we did if we'd been proactive. Are there any particular pests that you would argue that our strategy should be more proactive with? Or is that in terms of scoping out pests that aren't in the plan but could possibly end up being so?
I mean, I think context is really important. So when this RPMP started, well, the previous RPMP had half the number of pests, right? So that doubled, and that is a huge challenge for ORC across 10% of New Zealand. That is, Otago covers 10% of New Zealand, so it's a hell of a job. So, but one of the challenges, what we observed, and this kind of has been observed across pests, is that there's a lack of awareness that's in the community, but also there is a lack of enforcement. While we have seen enforcement happening, well, with NOTSA issued for rabbits, because that's a really big issue, but it could be stronger. And I think therefore there's a lot of catching up to be done. This is a key issue. It's about enforcement. If there was better enforcement, that would give ORC a certain headwind to be ahead of the pests, and rather than having to run behind. What the other issue is there's a lot of because they're legacy pests, Oldman beard and rabbits, a lot of monitoring is focused particularly on Oldman's beard, Bormaria, and rabbits. That drags a lot of resources that ORC is spending, and that stops them from looking elsewhere. So there might be other ways to approach it, which is more targeted to specific areas, as we alluded to. Yes, that could help with the proactive approach. The other one is what data. You asked me a question about data already. ORC have done a great job to establish the data systems. And what we know is that, and we have had 4 great groups talking just before May, and we have 2 catchment groups, talking to 20 different stakeholders. We had the chance to talk to from community groups up to MPI, and of course, Otago Regional Council. There are a lot of people collecting data, and if this data was integrated and managed together, that could also help us a lot more in proactively managing pests, identifying where to target pests, and be ahead of the curve, so to say. So yeah, these are kind of areas. Adding more pests to the plan is a challenge because there are already 50 pests in it. What we heard from stakeholders is that although it would be good to expand for possums, to have considered deer as well. Possums and deer, they're included in the target programs, but not outside of these. And there are some marine pests as well that were named that are, so to say, creeping up from the south. But first, you got to fix the current pests and also consider, changes potentially to some GNR rules, etc., to make it more effective. But yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell. Hopefully answers your question.
Thank you. Thanks for this. Thank you, Michael. I've got Alan.
Right, thank you. This is, I think, following up on Gretchen's question and Libby's answer. We've heard that there are some actions in that table 4 from pages 46 on that we'd be able to start doing in the next financial year. So the next paper we've got to consider is about the biosecurity operational plan for the next year. So are those actions, have they been able to find their way into that new plan for the next year?
Good question. So the recommendations that we've received are more are more around how we do what we do, not what we do. And the operational plan is around what we do. So got a little list of things of how we'll pick them up. So some of the things that we will, some of the ways that we'll pick up those recommendations are through the regional pest management plan review. So some of the things will be started on from pretty much now so that we can reflect that in the new plan. We'll be updating our biosecurity comms plan, so that will pick up some of the stuff.
Yep.
We've also in the next paper we talk a little bit about developing annual work plans. So those sit underneath the operational plan and they'll be for individual officers. And so some of that would sit within that. There's some process stuff we need to improve around our letters and our communications and improving our compliance process as well.
Okay, thank you. And I mean, that's really good to hear that the stuff can be acted on as soon as possible. And thank you for explaining how it fits the up.
Do we have any other questions? Over Ali, David Tuttle, Lee Kim.
Just on the enforcement stuff throughout the report, it sort of seems, for saying otherwise, I haven't got that right, but it sounds like we were doing the enforcement and investigating non-compliance, but then not following through when it wasn't dealt with. And I'm just wondering what the sort of causes were for that gap at the end of our process, it seems.
Yeah, so I'll start and then I'll pass on to Libby for some more technical stuff. So we do have a biosecurity compliance and enforcement policy, yeah. And as with any compliance, it's about the right tool at the right time. And we always start these with education where appropriate. But it is being comfortable with using the tools. The tools under the Biosecurity Act aren't the best tools and they're not the same as our RMA tools. And some of those can be incredibly complex in terms of notice of directions and all of those. So part of it is getting comfortable with and moving through from that education space where we get really good gains through to using more formal enforcement tools. And we've had pretty clear advice and direction that is expected. And the process to me is very similar with what we did with our regulatory RMA compliance process, where we weren't doing what we needed to do in a way we should be doing it. And again, it's the same in picking that up and completing it through this biosecurity work program as well. And this report lays some really good and important groundwork for us to move forward from.
I can just add a little bit to that. So we've also recently added to our processes around how we make decisions for enforcement, and also we've needed to create a system for how, if we're going to undertake default work, that we can do that, and that is all ready to go now. So if we need to do it, we can do it, but it's a change as well for our staff to be able to do that, and for the community to understand. To get good biosecurity outcomes, we need it to be a coordinated approach. So you can't just do enforcement on one property if the neighbouring property is also non-compliant. So they need to be aligned at the same stage within the process. So there's some things we need to do to line up, but we are working on that already, and great recommendations from Julius's report that we need to work harder in that space too.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, just referring to table 4, the recommendations to improve effectiveness again. Looking through all of these, I hope you don't mind me saying, it looks like most of these can be done from the comfort of a desk. But the one that stands out for me most is the investment in capacity and capability for utilising AI-enabled traps and drones. But I'm wondering why that has just been given a medium priority.
The medium priority is basically because of round of costs and implications for that. But it's a direction that the ORC will need to take seriously going forward, because it's much more efficient and effective way of monitoring and surveilling pests. And so it's a resource allocation issue more than something that's related to the agency.
Yeah. In terms of our annual planning process and our and longer term planning processes, the cost aspect of it should really be our responsibility. You guys should be coming up with the best options here and presenting them to us So I'm sorry, it's not a question, I'm just sort of trying to put that out there, but that actually looks to me to be a really effective recommendation.
Yeah, and if I do pick up the question in there, so we are looking at the importance of drones and that technology, and we will look to be in a position for our annual plans and long-term plans about how we continue to use technology and how that will inform our program. We are looking at drones now in terms of how they can be used for our field staff and what training is needed, and we are hoping to accommodate those within year two's budget and that have been included in the annual plan figures that you had seen. So yeah, I think we got the question and we do recognise the importance of it, and where there are good ideas and new funding needed, we will absolutely bring them up to this table because we know there's clear interest in the biosecurity work program and the outcomes that the community and ourselves are achieving.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. We have Kevin and then Michael.
Yeah, probably to Julius. Julius, just testing some of your outcomes or your results. And if I firstly go to page 18 of your report, which is intermediate outcomes for eradication pests. And so the RPMP core objectives for eradication pests by 2029. And you've said that the wallaby, the eradication of wallabies is not effective. And if I just then take it to page 103, where you say the starter could indicate a lack of effectiveness of the RPMP through the National Wallaby Program and eradication of wallabies in Otago, and it is important to interrogate the data. Reporting relies on public awareness, and a possible explanation for the increased reporting could be due to the improved public awareness through the RPMP. However, without a baseline, this is hard to assess and leaves uncertainty. So my question from that is, if you didn't know, and we didn't know the wallaby population in Otago at the start of the RPMP, or where the wallabies actually were in Otago, how can you now tell us that both those measures are not effective when in fact, and that's reducing the wallaby population ultimately to a zero density by 2029 and preventing their spread?
No, I get where you're coming from. So we split it into two outcomes. One was about awareness, and we said, well, that's working well, and that comes from stakeholder interviews. And for the other assessment, in terms of the effectiveness in the outcome itself, the prevalence, we use different data sources. So the first approach we looked at was iNaturalist, because that gives us before and after, the RPMP was put in motion, and there was no data recorded. I get your point that either you have a baseline, but what we heard from stakeholders was we got stakeholder feedback that they saw numbers increasing. Now that could also be because there's more awareness, but the last part was kind of the missing puzzle piece, so to say, was the data we used from ORC, the wallaby data, WALL-IS. Murray can elaborate this better than me, I suppose, but that data showed us that there was infestations or reported wallabies over the last years that moved deeper into Otago territory. So reporting early on in the RPMP showed that reported wallabies were rather with the boundary of Canterbury, where the issue comes from. But later on, we found that reported wallabies were deeper into Otago. So therefore, a conclusion is, well, that could indicate with a pinch of salt that there is actually the control is not achieved, the eradication is not achieved. So that's where it comes from. Ideally, you want to have before and after data, which we didn't have, but the reporting that moves deeper into Otago more recently, as opposed to early on in the program, kind of supports the judgment we made.
So which goes completely against your own, so it could, you just said that it could say that we're not meeting those parameters, but we have, and you said yourself that however without a baseline, but you've condemned the program by saying it's not effective. And we've got a date of 2029 for, so I'm just, I don't think it just appears that you haven't taken any cognizance in the fact that you can't just eradicate everything on day one. You've also said that the fact that we're doing a good job of making people aware of wallabies. So that probably is well, it actually is the fact that that's why they're seeing more, and that's why more are getting reported, and that's that's to me is factual. So I'm just struggling to say, because it's been publicised in the ODT now that the scheme is not effective. So I'm just simply challenging that, because I think it is being effective. We're working exceptionally hard with their staff are, and they're working very well with the MPI with ECAN to, I just think it's a very unfair position to put on a program, and I don't know who you've talked to about it, because yes, you certainly didn't talk to me about it. So, well, and I chair the Wallaby Eradication Group, so I thought that would have been a reasonably important stakeholder, but.
I do understand that you have a lot of money involved into wallabies. What we clearly put out is that there have been a lot of important developments going on, particularly when it comes to Judas wallaby trials. And once they will be rolled out, if they are rolled out, there would probably be quite an impactful approach to controlling it. However, what I said could, I mean, if there's more observed prevalence of wallabies deeper into Otago, that is an indication that I said could, but don't put me on don't put too much weight on the word could. That is an indication that at least, well, eradication is strong, right? You would expect that you wouldn't have deeper movement of wallabies into Otago if there was progress made towards eradication. So yeah, but I understand, and we acknowledge that in the report, that there's a lot of important work done. That's why we also reported on the success in terms of the awareness of the public. Yeah, we didn't get to speak to you. I'm glad we speak now, a bit late. But yeah, that's in a nutshell our assessment why we came, it landed on the assessment.
Thanks. We got thanks, giving a bit of leeway with that question. So I think
Lloyd, it's reasonably important. So if you're going to keep cutting me short, I'll just remember that at future meetings. So that's good. I think it's pretty ordinary, actually.
We'll carry on. We've got some questions from Michael, Kate, and Gary.
Thank you. Listen, I just wanted to tease out something that's really quite important and will affect this coming financial year. The recommendations, and it might not be Julius that answers this question, it might be ORC staff. The recommendation that we are going to agree to today, I have no difficulty with it at all, number 5, is to increase the number of new and re-inspections and also 6 target enforcement areas. Now, I've seen that they'll commence on the 1st of July 25, so that's the new financial year. And I don't know, and I might be a question sort of following on from what Gretchen asked before, do we have the funding to be able to do that within the plan that's coming before, the annual plan that's coming before the council? What, be another week? Is it another 2 weeks away? And is that incorporated in the next item we're about to discuss, which is the Regional Pest Management Operational Plan for 25-26?
Yes, we have the budget in the next financial year, and yes, it's incorporated in the operational plan.
Okay, so the next question I would have then would be, can I see that? Can we see that? So what we're interested in is, I looked through 9.3 and I couldn't see it, but it might be there. The number of inspections you did in the 24-25 year that were apparently insufficient and inadequate, and then the inspections that are planned to be done in the 25-26 year.
We'll be presenting a paper in September with an annual report on the inspections that we've done for 24-25, because we're still within that year now. And then we've got the operational plan to discuss for next year in the next paper.
And the intention is then to move into a phase of regular reporting on how we are tracking against the number of inspections, and also then how the team is progressing in terms of implementing the recommendations from this report. So very similar reporting to what we do for the other activities in the environmental delivery group in that regulatory space. So you'll see how we have been tracking and what we've been doing and how we are tracking towards implementing these recommendations.
Sorry, I don't quite understand. It just might be me. So is that you are going to increase the number of inspections, or you're simply going to prioritize them? Is there new funding to do on top of what has been done in the 24-25 year? Or are you taking the roughly the same funding and then prioritizing it differently?
Basically, yes. So what we do in a process is that we do an inspection, and if an inspection is not compliant, we do a re-inspection. And the weakness that this report has identified is that the re-inspections have probably not kept pace with the inspections. So there will be a greater focus on doing re-inspections to understand whether that compliance has been met or not.
Out of the existing budget, or is that right?
Yes, out of the existing budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Kate?
Look, thank you. I'm just going to stand back a bit and it's about your methodology, which I'm intrigued with, and the use of iNaturalist, which is citizen science at its best, which I love. Can I just understand why you chose that as one of your tools to, and how it's connected to our notification of pest plants, and what thinking is behind that as it being the and the reason I'm asking this question is you have suggested that we haven't promoted well some aspects of the regional pest management plan, but also I had never thought of using iNaturalist as my way of tracking or informing people of a pest. Equally, if it had been a pest animal, it would have been Trap NZ, or if I've done a trap that I would have used rather than iNaturalist. So I just wanted to understand how that you use those tools and where else that sort of methodology is used.
So that was a feedback we received from more experts in the field than I am. I'm an economist. The motivation for using it was that it provides us with before RPMP data, this present data, which we didn't have otherwise, and that helps us to baseline it against. And we accounted for potential issues with the data, which is increased reporting over time by weighting basically the data points. So that's why we used it. That was the motivation to really have something to compare before and after.
And you wouldn't use Trap NZ as data on about capture of those other pest animals. That is equally, I don't know how well integrated that sort of information is, but I'm just.
We landed on this data. The other data is around as well, but that seems to be the most useful for us for this one. So I can't comment beyond that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
Yeah, thank you. The report, I've just got a couple of questions. The report has highlighted that peri-urban and lifestyle block areas remain a concern. It hasn't really focused, or I haven't noted the council-controlled lands and public areas being identified as well, but I still see them as being a continual identifiable problem. And I just wonder, are we actually comfortable that those other areas are being controlled to the extent they should be? Because I'm certainly not seeing it. That's my first question.
Thank you, Councillor Keller. They are definitely an area that we want to ensure are being compliant, and so we're working on them. They are an area of concern for us. And we will continue to inspect them and re-inspect them and ensure that they are compliant.
Okay, thank you. The other one really was just at a very high level. We changed a couple of years ago from being an enforcement, I suppose, across everywhere to heavily focused in certain hotspot areas, and then maybe reactionary to other areas as they appeared. Are we comfortable that, given we are sitting with a report that's identifying issues, are we comfortable that that strategy is actually the strategy we should be continuing with?
I think we will need to continue to review that strategy and ensure that we are undertaking the work that we need to do across our region. We have a focus on hotspots because we know there's a problem there, but we also want to get on top of any trends that we're seeing that are coming up where it could turn into a hotspot if we don't get in there quickly. So we're continually reviewing that strategy, and as we do more surveillance and monitoring over time, that will help inform where we need to go. And we've got budget in the next financial year to do surveillance work, which is the first time we've had that. So that's going to help us be able to fill that gap.
Thanks, Gary, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Christian.
Yeah, I'd just like to move the recommendations there.
That's good, because anybody pick second, we've motion moved, both motions by Gretchen, seconded by Helen. Any discussion? Thanks, Gretchen.
Yep, just wanted to say thanks heaps for this independent review of where we're at council. As Joe pointed out before, we've had a assessment of where we're at in compliance in this council, and this is probably an area that goes underneath compliance as well, and just are we doing the best job that we could be doing? And it's awesome that we have asked ourselves that. That's really important to own up if, we can make improvements. I think all councils could probably make improvements. So we're not unique. We need to be obviously improving, simplifying our message of what we expect. We'll need to prioritise areas to target. We'll need to be doing more inspections, and we'll need to be enforcing, and we'll need to be doing that under good practice for compliance. So we'll be having a good close look at that by the sounds of things. Obviously, we know that compliance isn't all about enforcement. There's a lot of top of the cliff rather than bottom of the cliff that goes into good compliance. But actually, at the bottom of the cliff, we will need to be enforcing. So I guess moving towards that, there's some work that needs to be done on that compliance approach. By the sounds of it, we're going to be starting 1st of July. So new financial year. I think a really important thing is messaging, and that's there. So we need to be telling people that actually as a council, that's where we're moving. And as we know more, what they can expect from us, because we do want to be a fair and consistent council that follows through. Thanks.
Thanks, Gretchen. Michael?
Sorry. Listen, I've been a councillor since 2016, and this has been a constant issue. We haven't been doing a good job with pests, and the problem is we don't know how bad the job we've been doing or how good. And I want to compliment the Chief Executive for picking up that discussion from last year and commissioning this effectiveness report, which shows the deficiencies and clearly illustrates the areas we've got so much work to do in. The thing that I want to say is that we have invested still, and I guess we'll come to it, the next issue, still resources that I'm not sure that we can. Out of this discussion today, we've learned that we're not actually going to spend any more on compliance. We're just going to reprioritise. That's quite an important issue to come out of today's discussion. And I wonder if when we are trying to combat pests, which grow with their threat by every passing year, and when we are being urged to be proactive, not reactive, if we really do have the resources at hand to be able to do the job we're still required to do. I think that's something we have yet to address.
Thanks, Michael. Kevin?
Yeah, happy to support the motions, but the report clearly shows that there's two things we probably need to really brush up on is communicating the intent of the plan, and certainly we need to use all the tools that we have in the toolbox. So that's the two things that really come out from there. And yes, we should be able to do that within our budgetary constraints that we have. So a good report.
Thank you. Alan?
Thank you. Yeah, there's useful and important information in here. The ORC, we put in quite a lot of effort into improving the effectiveness of our pest management and biosecurity. We've brought forward the review of the regional pest management plan. We currently have underway the review of the biodiversity strategy, which encompasses biosecurity, and this can feed into all of those things. So thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Gretchen, would you like to?
No.
So first, no hands up. So with that, I'll put the both motions, notes, reports, and recommends council approves the prioritisation of the recommendations to improve the effectiveness and the delivery of the current and future regional pest management plans. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Julius, for your input for the discussion as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 9.3, which is the regional pest management plan operation plan for 25-26. We'll get Libby to introduce that paper.
Sure. So there's a few authors missing off this. So I've got Murray here from the last paper, Rob Wynn and Michelle Ewan. So I've also been with us on this paper. So this is presenting the biosecurity operational plan for 25-26. This operational plan has evolved over the past 4 to 5 years. There's some updated freshwater biosecurity KPIs which are included, and there's a section on marine which has also been added. So those are the two key changes to the operational plan for this year. But we'll take the rest as read and move on quickly because I know we're running out of time.
Thanks, Libby. Any questions?
Welcome.
Councillor Malcolm.
Yeah. On page 208 under sustained pest control feral rabbits under your operational plan, there's no mention of enforcement actions. You've got all the actions of doing things, but nothing to say that at the appropriate time enforcement actions are taken. Or have I read that wrong?
Yeah, so that's within our biosecurity enforcement policy, and it's in the way we do things, not what we do. We don't want to have a target of how many enforcement actions we will take because that makes us look a bit like we're out there to try and get people if we have KPIs around how many enforcements we'll undertake. But in the way that we work, we will ensure that appropriate enforcement action is undertaken when we do inspections.
We good there, Kevin?
It's related to Joe's comment around aligning the policies with the way compliance. So compliance have started with a high level, and this is the operational plan. There's the how we do it piece, which is to your question, Kevin, and you need to have confidence that we have the processes in place that where there is non-compliance, it will escalate through enforcement action. So just supporting Libby's response, the operational plan is the what we will do. It's important that this committee receives the how it will be done and has confidence that there are robust processes in place. So it's a fair question, Kevin, given the report you just discussed.
Yeah.
And it'll need to be reported through at some point as well.
So where will I see a line that appropriate enforcement actions are taken when?
Yeah, so that'll be within that biosecurity compliance enforcement policy, but we'll also be in our regular reporting moving forward, explaining, where we do take enforcement action and where that is located. So very similar reporting format to the broader environmental delivery reporting. I'm looking at Simon Wilson over the back in terms of how that will be in the team sitting next to me as well. So it exists with all of our documents, and again, it's just about how we embed that within the team and then report it through so you as governors have the confidence that we are achieving that direction.
Yeah, so subsequent to that, when a report is given on those KPIs there, where will it show that, where will it show that, the Wilson family have not done their rabbit shoot, they haven't complied and we've taken enforcement action?
Yeah,
It's not
so
obviously in the-
we won't name any names,
No,
similar
we
approach
obviously don't,
to,
yeah.
but a lot of that reporting happens through the end of year report, and Murray can probably speak to the details of that, but I would imagine that comes at that end of year report that we have to do and send to the minister as well.
It is reflected in 5.1, sustain pest control, facilitate control. There is that in any inspected site where rabbit control is required, appropriate actions are undertaken to facilitate control to at or below MMS3 for rabbits in Otago. And so I guess that doesn't explain that we will do what specific action we'll take. So that would then be reported in our annual report.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Libby. We've got Kate and then Michael.
I think I've got something wrong in my head here because it's the timing of this. This is operational on the 1st of July. We've still got a work plan to develop. And we've done our annual plan already, which would have been good if we wanted to get more money in there. We would have done the work plan earlier. Or at what stage, if there had been something that we wanted to do more of, would that have come to us?
It would have come through the annual plan. So our work plan is based on this operational plan, and it's more of a detailed plan for each biosecurity officer. So just to explain what the work plan is, it's not going to tell people to do more than what's in the operational plan. It'll just be setting out exactly what we're expecting to be delivered, which connects back to this. So it's just the next stage down.
And we sign this off today. It will be, you'll be doing that work plan before the 1st of July as well.
We're doing it now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Kate. Michael?
Yeah, it's sort of a continuation of that in actual fact. If I, let's just choose feral rabbits on page 9 as an example, but I could be using this for any of the pests. You've got a series of things that you intend to do, but I don't know, in your work plan, so that's the first question is, I've only got 2. The first question is, how many inspections were you intending to do in the 25-26 year? V, how many you did last year? And you must have had some indication of that. And now, as a consequence of the report that we've just received beforehand, how many of those inspections will now be re-inspections? So that's the first question. And the second question is, and this is my complaint all along the line with the ORC's pest management plans, I'd like to know at the end of the year if you've been successful. And none of these things will tell me that. In other words, by the end of the 25-26 plan, will you have reduced the number of feral rabbits in Otago? Because do you have a baseline at where you will be on the 30th of June 2024 from which you can measure that particular achievement or not? And that relates not just to rabbits, but to all pests that are in our pest management plan.
So I'll just jump in at the start while the team is coming up with the more detailed answers to that. I think what the previous report on paper has showed is that there is a lot of work for us to do in the biosecurity space to build trust and confidence and also deliver and provide outcomes. The team has been doing excellent work, but there certainly is more to do. What this operational plan sets out is what the KPIs are for the upcoming year and what the team will work to deliver. And that will then give us an idea on how successful we have been or not. But there is still some work to do in terms of understanding the number of pests and where they are, and those will be picked up through the implementation of the recommendations from the initial review. Where we do have that data and information, we will use that to benchmark how we are going and where we want to get to. But we do recognise there is a lot of work to do and the continuation of some really good and effective work as well. And I'll just pass on to the team for more detailed answers.
Sorry about that. So from last year's operational plan, there was a goal of 250. So we have achieved that. We've actually achieved 280 for the year so far, with 130 community rabbits. So we've actually exceeded that KPI. So for the next year, we would expect to be doing the same amount, if not more, as what we've done last year, and we were looking to improve that number. It's saying that that will be in the work plan for our officers at that level, where we'll be reporting for next year that we've achieved that number and what number that will be, and that will be in the annual report.
Can I just test something? And there's a second part to the question Michael asked around, and it goes back to a discussion we had a couple of committees ago around outcomes, reporting on outcomes. So the operational plan is a requirement of the Act, and we effectively provide that report to meet the intent of the Act. There's nothing stopping us as a council, if our governance table are after different information to inform the effectiveness of their spend, for us to look at a different type of report. But regardless of that, we need to provide this one to the minister as a requirement under the Act. Otherwise, we're not meeting that, and I'm sure a stick will come out or something. So I think there's a couple of things. One is this report meets our requirements, and obviously there is still an approval required from council because it is still sitting in our project, but it's very specific in terms of the way it's done and the way it needs to be provided to the minister. The second conversation is what else this council table may want to be able to monitor the effectiveness of the investment that we're making, because I don't think that is something that the minister requires through any form of reporting, but it is something we've talked quite a lot about. And I suppose as a continuation of the previous report we just discussed, which was at a much higher level, but probably could be brought down more granular in terms of focusing on specific pests and specific areas within the region. So I don't know, Libby, if you can provide any more context and also just response to Michael's second question, which was specifically around the effectiveness in an outcome sense.
Yeah, so we do provide the annual report as well, which is to report on the operational plan as part of the RPMP. That's what we provide to the minister. And then, yes, we can pick up anything else that council wants to deliver. That's fine. Murray was going to answer the question on the effectiveness review.
So in terms of the effectiveness of our work, we are collecting data at present that can start to provide some indication towards that, and that was referred to in the previous paper on the effectiveness, that we can show that, for example, our re-inspections do have a positive impact on reducing rabbit densities. We're not going to solve the rabbit population problem overnight, but over time we think that we can get there by implementing the certain processes and procedures that we've identified in the various reports. This will just take time, and we're building the capacity and the capabilities of our data collection systems and monitoring systems to be able to provide that data going forward. So we're getting into the right space to be able to provide that information.
Thanks, Murray. Kevin?
Well, yeah, just on those numbers for pest inspection, we'll just say pick on that rabbit one at 250, but again, it's probably for any, so when, I understand what this report's about, but when do we get the opportunity to look at those targets you've got, and you'll tell us you've achieved them or not, but when do we get to understand from staff the optimum levels of inspections, i.e. which would have possibly have budgetary considerations to go with them?
So we've got a biosecurity update report that we'll be doing in September, so we can include in that the number of inspections that are going to be done, and if there's some optimum level that is more than that, we'll report back through that, and that'll be quarterly that we're doing that. We'll be doing that report to council.
Yep. So effectively, it'll need to come, or some commentary around optimum numbers would need to come in September to feed the annual plan process, which will be starting.
Absolutely.
Immediately as soon as Neutronium starts sitting effectively, you'll be starting to think about the next annual plan. So it'll be important for us just to pick up some of that commentary around optimum numbers and that report.
Yeah, why they've chosen those numbers. Really good. Thank you.
Beautiful. There's someone who'd like to move on this.
No.
Thanks, Gretchen. Second, Ellen. Any debate? Those like, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. We'll just have a 6 mil intermission.
Moved.
Seconded.
Seconded, aye.
Okay, move. Wait, and then Gretchen. At about 10 to 4. They're approximately 1 hour behind schedule. So we're all live and ready to go again. Just like to remind councillors, we've got quite a number of papers, so can we just try and have our questions short to the point and so we can move through it relatively quickly. The next paper is item 9.4, integrated catchment management, with Libby and Anna. Anna has been leading the integrated catchment program and doing an awesome job. So I'll just let you introduce the paper and take it from there.
Thank you. Anna's missed as an author on this paper and she should be on there. So sorry, Anna. We're just going to take this paper as read, please. But before we do that, I'd just really like to acknowledge the awesome work that Anna has done. She's been pivotal to our ICM program. So Anna is leaving council and is at the end of June? July, yeah. So just really wanted to take the time to acknowledge Anna's work and leadership in this space. She's been pivotal to the ICM program. So yeah, just really wanted to take the opportunity to say a big thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't have any questions at the stage, so Gretchen.
Oh, yeah, sorry. But I would just like to foreshadow slightly different recommendations if there aren't any questions. I'd like to move some alternative motions and just double check there aren't questions. And if we could put them up, then I can see whether or not I attract a seconder. Yeah, so the one there that's noting the report and the progress made in ICM, which was one of the original ones, notes the terms of reference adopted by the Catlinks governance group, again another one that was there. So endorses the continuation of the projects currently underway as outlined in the report. And requests that staff undertake a full review of the integrated catchment management program and report back to the September committee meeting with options to accelerate delivery and streamline governance and oversight arrangements. I don't want to talk to them until I know I've got a seconder, but they will need an explanation.
Yeah. Happy to second.
Give me 1 second. Okay, a second.
Yep.
Do we have any questions?
Not in relation to the recommendation, I just did have a question.
The quick questions, fine, Andrea.
Yeah, the quick questions just around the proposed not rehash of the Dunedin Coast one limited, basically limiting it to the harbour. So I assume limiting to the catchment of the harbour would be the focus area. Would that be correct? Okay.
Also the coast, the north. The reason for that is that the starting point for all catchment action plans was the FMU or ROHEs that were in the Land and Water Ritual Plan, and the Dunedin and Coast ROHE or FMU I should say, includes the Dunedin Harbour and the coastal area to the north, which is all one contiguous parcel. It also includes a coastal area to the south below the Taieri Mount, and it would make sense to reflect the Tawa or Tako Issues and Opportunities Plan, which would be the catchment of the harbour, but include the coastal area to the north, but not the one to the south because it's disconnected somewhat.
Cool, thank you.
Elliot?
So just in that discussion, where does the Kaikorai estuary and Kaikorai stream sit in that? Because it goes through Dunedin, but that's south of Dunedin and where it is.
I have got a map, but not with me. Kaikorai stream, if it's north of the Taieri Mouth, it would be in the Dunedin and Coast.
It's Dunedin.
Regardless of whether we split, yeah.
Okay, we don't have any hands up, so we could go to Mike Ewan.
Well, just on the timing of the North Otago one, I wonder if, and this is probably new around the table too, the work about to be done on the Waitaki catchment with Hui that we are planning to have with the Runaka, and whether that might need to be considered before we jump into.
I could probably jump in because I think Kevin, you missed the alternative motions that
Oh, sorry,
council is moving, which is I suspect motion 4 gives us the chance just to have a look at some of the things that have been decided recently, or not necessarily decisions made by council, but certainly the direction of Waitaki and reviewing that.
Yeah. Cool.
The decision around
That does cover it.
and I'll let Gretchen explain the rest of it, but I think that will address the question you've got about do we need to reconsider.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Gretchen, you can introduce your motions.
Thanks very much. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, integrated catchment management is a really significant part of where we're going as a council and where we're going as communities in Otago. These alternative motions recognise that there's some fantastic work in place. We've developed some really good programs and we've got amazing communities working in this space. This is about increasing that momentum. It's certainly not about diminishing that. There's some reasons why I think at this point we need to endorse the continuation of the projects that are currently underway. This is definitely not about pulling back, but it's also timely that we have a really good think about the future of integrated catchment management and how we can efficiently and effectively deliver that. So there's, like I said, some really, really strong foundations in place. We've built a program that's built momentum. It's established a framework. There's valuable on the ground experience, and that's particularly in the Catlins and the Upper Lakes catchment action planning. But there's also a legacy of community engagement that's actually happened for a really long time that we can be drawing on at this point as well. ORC's had quite a long history involved in catchment liaison, community work, and also there's a number of really well-established groups that have just been getting on with things themselves throughout Otago as well. And Catchment's community has been supporting those as well. So yeah, there's a lot to draw on at this moment in time, and I think it's a good idea to have a rethink on how we go forward. So we've also got new funding tools available, and we've recently launched, I suppose, and we'll consider the final stage as we sign off the annual plan, large-scale environmental fund. And it has some allocation principles, which we did sign off, which support alignment with catchment action planning. So that offers a chance to scale up support more strategically. The national direction supports this approach as well, from what we can see coming from central government too. So the government are continuing to reinforce the importance of catchment groups for localised planning, for the farm planning, catchment planning approach. So ORC is well positioned in there to have a really good think about our involvement as well in that space. So yeah, we support productive and resilient landscapes through integrated catchment approaches, which are vital for the long-term environmental and economic resilience of Otago. We've also got a real focus at the moment on efficiency and delivery, and we've started with efficiency reviews, but also it's a continual theme that we ask ourselves, can we reprioritise what's the most efficient? How are we going to get the best outcomes? Because it's about actual outcomes on the ground. So yeah, we urgently need to see those outcomes. So we urgently need to accelerate this process, in my opinion. We can't have a slow rollout over a decade, which is what we've got at the moment. We need to be faster, we need to be more coordinated, and we need to make sure that we've got that overarching governance and oversight, that we're accountable in that space as well. So this is what this motion is about. It's about acceleration, it's about efficiently getting outcomes. Thanks.
Thanks, Gretchen. Kate?
I'll talk to it later if needed.
I'm not going to have three.
It's fine, go for it.
Alexa?
Yeah, just quickly, I think there's an opportunity in this review to really understand what works really well and what hasn't worked, and then so that things can be rolled out a whole lot at once if we have to. That's all.
Anybody else for debate?
Question.
Is it technical? Is it a clarification?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brooklyn.
So just on the projects currently underway, so this excludes any of the upcoming projects that Dunedin would presumably is the next one down in the proposal.
So within table one.
Yeah.
That's the existing work underway. So then table two would be part of the motion four, effectively.
That would all be put on hold until we come back with what comes out of motion four, essentially.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say a couple of things. First of all, I think the integrated catchment management program has been doing awesome. It's been really well headed by Anna, and it's really set a framework to move forward. And as a framework that's been recognised externally from Otago as well. It's a frame, the detail and particularly it's how it looks like it's going to progress into the future, creating your monitoring and recording of information and actions and stuff coming through. It's the whole package that's being recognised external to Otago as well. And I just think that what this motion is going to allow us is to sit back a little bit, because the world has changed over the last 18 months. And there's like a big move towards catchment environmental practice at catchment level, and getting catchment level feedback up the lines, well, basically to central government, I guess. And so I think in some ways it's a testament to the success of the program and how it's worked in the Catlins and how it's been developing in the Upper Lakes, that it gives us confidence that we've got a pretty good model there. We just got to work out how we can use that model in the most efficient way to be able to, to look at the opportunities of accelerating the model and try and getting a wider group of people involved quicker, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to give us our quickest benefit to the environment. And so I think this is a really positive step, not a negative step when it comes to integrated catchment management, so that we can actually make sure that it is the governance and the speed and the targeted at place communities of interest are identified, so we can get the best outputs and buy into the future. So I think it's a really positive recommendation, and so I'll support it. I think we've had does anybody like to speak against the motion? If not, I think we'll just put the motion as it is. I don't have a hand up for it. All those in favour? So these are the motions, the Councillor Robson ones as on the board, second of Wilson, the bottom line. So all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Anna. We'll move on to item 9.5. Not have a new mind. All that to the move. 9.5, freshwater update, provide an update of the 5 water quality focus projects. Councillors involved, and so this is won't say too much. I'll let Libby introduce the paper and
Thank you. And I have an entourage of people here with me. Who I don't know have all been in front of council. So Sarah Irvine is on the end, she has before. Alison Turner is here. Is this your first one? First time council. Melanie White's been here before, and Jennifer Lawn has been here. So they've all contributed to this paper, and we'll probably, Lloyd, it might be good to just go through it section by section as questions come up. So this paper provides an update on 4 water quality focused projects that ORC is involved in, which includes Toitu Te Hakapupu, Lake Tuakitoto, Tomahawk Lagoon, and the Hill Country Erosion Program. So we're seeking, it's really a noting paper, and there's just one thing we're seeking endorsement of, which is to progress with a funding application to MPI for 4 years of funding to continue the work that we've done on the Hill Country Erosion Program to date.
Thank you, Libby. Will we just do one at a time? Is that what you think? So
I think
we'll talk to
so.
Hakapupu first.
Yeah.
So any questions around Hakapupu? Yes, Kate?
Sorry, it's hard to tell on this where the project start and stop. But I think on table 4, which is page 257 of our agenda, is the one with the examples of regional councils that have received hill country erosion funding. That's for the Hakapupu. Right, okay.
No, it's not. It's that'll be the last thing we cover.
Sorry, apologies. It's hard to tell whether.
Yeah, I've got it.
So Toitu Te Hakapupu is from page 248 to 258. Just the top of that.
So 257 is within that.
Oh, to 253. Sorry, 253.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions? We'll move on to the next one. We'll bring up, Lake Tuakitoto. The next one I have.
But isn't that the hill country? Have I got the? Have I got
Sorry,
the report?
yeah, Hill Country
Oh, Hill
Erosion's in the
Country
plan,
Erosion next.
which
I
is
got
page-
I think there's some, I think there's a wee project into Hakapupu, which is doing poplars, and it's got it just a wee bit mixed up. Yeah, but
So why don't we just jump to Tuakitoto then, which is page 258 to 260, halfway down.
okay, we're on Tuakitoto. Any questions on Tuakitoto? Yes, Al.
Thanks. Yeah, look, I was looking on page 270, as it turns out, which is the implementation program for Lake Tuakitoto. And I must say, I was admiring the clarity of that one pager. Thank you for whoever has been responsible for that. The question is, from time to time, we keep talking about, we want to have reporting on outcomes. And on that page, it has some long-term outcomes, is it over 18 months? And that, I guess, is the point of the program. And my question is, when and how will we see reporting on those long-term outcomes for this and the other projects that have similar outcomes?
So we've got it's great. I've been talking too much, the battery's on, but we do a 6 monthly update for this paper, which is on freshwater projects. So we'll report back 6 monthly for the entirety of the projects, which will then talk about the outcomes as well. And we also are partnering with the catchment group, Otago South River Care. So I'm sure that they come along and present like we had catchment groups present today, and hopefully they'll talk about this project as part of their presentation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. If any other questions on Lake Tuakitoto? It's good to see some really good action going on there, so awesome. Tomahawk Lagoon. It's another one that's actually getting a few leaks just in the last 6 months, which is good to see. Any questions on Tomahawk? Alec?
Tomahawk, but it kind of just applies to the whole.
Yeah.
All of these projects. I guess just wondering if I mean, first of all, I was keen if you had any more details on the adopt a drain stuff and what the plan is for implementing that and outreach on that, and then the question for Tom Harker that I guess I'm also curious about the other ones, but in particular Tomaka is just around those implementation plans and where to from here, but in particular how we are there any sort of open community events planned in those spaces?
Yeah, sure. So I can speak about Adopt a Drain. So that's being run by our catchment advisor team, and it's been based on a very successful program done by Wanaka. So there's two parts to it. One is working directly with schools, so they're adopting a drain in their actual campus. And then the second part is where locals adopt their local drain, and there's a fish plaque put onto drains, etc. And there's actions they do seasonally to look after their drain. And that is being trialled in Tomahawk Lagoon catchment, and then will be rolled out across other parts of the region. So that is actually happening in the coming month. It's getting underway.
Thank you. Okay.
What was your second part?
Just around the sort of general, so I guess first question was just around community engagement on the drains, and then it was just community engagement on everything else, basically.
Yeah, so are there any events coming up in Tomahawk, community engagement events? The question?
Yeah, is there any more?
Yeah, there'll definitely be
plans?
some more planting days. So we've been supporting Tomahawk Scales Beach Care Trust, and they will be having some more public planting days that we'll let you know about.
And we will send all of those invites through the governance calendar, so you all get them.
Okay.
The Tomahaka one or the Tue Katoto one is, they're great reports and there's really good stuff happening. I'm interested in the inputs for those outcomes and whether we're measuring what we're putting in, what the community are putting in, and by way of people turning up and we bit of that all time, and the financial contributions at all, so that we can measure our successes. Is that, are we doing any of that stuff? Or are we asking them to do that?
That's a good question. So we have funding agreements with quite a range of community groups and people now. So we'll definitely be monitoring those funding agreements and the outputs that are outlined in them and reporting back on those.
It's the inputs as well, the in-kind. Yeah, we are asking that in the finance.
So in some of their landowner agreements, they'll have in kind, but for a general kind of community day, that would be the group that's arranging that. They might want to measure how many people have come along, how many trees they've planted, and be able to report that back. But we don't necessarily expect that. Through the catchment action planning tool on Marae, there will be a way that people can input that stuff. And we're also looking at the first stages of our citizen science policy that can then hopefully pick some of that stuff up. So we're probably not picking up everything that we should be, or that we could be, but we need to understand what value that would add and how we use that data.
Absolutely, I don't want to make it so onerous, but I think, and the reason I'm going there is a question I'm going to ask later or whenever I can about Hill Country, but setting ourselves up to show in-kind contributions well, and why there should be an extra investment potentially either from corporate or from government. So it's just setting up people up in the best position to keep on going, really. I'm not quite sure if we're at the point that I can ask. I'm not quite sure the on-site wastewater project, which I want to ask a question, that was under which.
I'll say that's Tue Katoto.
It is. I thought it was, but I'm now questioning the rollout of the report. I'm really interested in your the Tairi. That is an area that iwi have acknowledges that they're really concerned about, and what your rollout might look like, or whether you've got any plans to take that further. Some of the systems in some areas are much older than others. Yeah.
So through our work program for the catchment advisors, so that's a different team to this one, we'll look at how we can roll that out. So the Tuaki Toto piece was the pilot.
Yeah.
We need to analyse the data that we've collected from that and see how we can roll it out into other areas, and that's something we'll pick up for next financial year in the catchment advisor work program. We haven't decided on where we're going next yet.
And that's good. I mean, it's I suppose the interesting thing, and again, it's easy to do this in hindsight, is what actions came out of that, and if you had a QR code or something that people would say, yes, we went and did this because you said it. It's just seeing how effective we are in communicating that. And, you know, I don't think most people realise it's a 3-year thing to do to clean it out. And what that looks like. So it'd just be really good to try and start getting some of that done. Thank you. A great initiative.
It's awesome, and just
Just in regards to the application for funding from MFE for the Toitū Te Hakapupu project. I noticed that if we don't get that, we've got maintenance that is already budgeted for in our environmental plans. But in terms of the funding for MFE, how likely is it we're going to get it? How much we're looking for, and what will we be doing with money?
Thank you for the question. So the way that money worked was we were actually approached by MFE. They wanted to supply some funds to active catchment groups that were connected to Jobs for Nature projects, who sustain those catchment groups through the next year, so that when they roll out their new freshwater farm plan or freshwater management rules, the catchment groups would be in one piece and connected to the community. When the catchment group was asked what they would like to do with any money, they nominated the development of a pest management strategy for Te Hakapupu, and also a bit of money to support part-time staff. That money will come through, and it will be administered through the same mechanism as the Toitū Te Hakapupu project. So it will come to ORC, and a contract will be formed between ORC and the catchment group to deliver that work.
And you heard about that from the catchment group this afternoon.
Yeah, I could probably just add to that. In the catchment group network across all of New Zealand, have been working with both MPI and MFE, and MFE made the decision to give continuation funding to existing Job for Nations project so that we don't fall off the cliff sort of thing, continuity funding. So this will be one of those projects. Yeah. And just for the Elliot with the Dr. Drone was started in Waiwanaka, as we're saying, is very successful, also funded by Target Catchment Community, and I think they now have 5 trains with the Dr. Drone systems in them, so it's another good success story. And the last area is the hill country erosion.
Thank you. And look, it's enlightening the we get reports like we did yesterday on siltation and the effects that has on the coastal estuaries, and not to mention the rivers as well. And yet I'm surprised, I probably shouldn't snibble at 0.43 million coming to the Otago Regional Council, but when you look at the quantum that other councils have been getting, are we setting our communities up as well as we can to be ready to apply for funding like this? And I'm probably turning it around, and this looks like a really good opportunity to get money in. And I haven't heard about it, but reading it in this report, and I'm just challenging ourselves or asking, how do we get the information and this opportunity potentially out there to a broader range of communities so that they can have as best effect on our environment as possible?
Yes, thanks for that question. And I was keen to show what other councils have had over a longer period than Otago Regional Council. The opportunity for funding is generally an MPI agreement with the council, so council are likely to be the applicant. But there's nothing to stop. The next funding period will be 2027 for another 4 years. I had confirmation yesterday that that MPI funding is fairly secure, so it's not at the risk of government whims. And so it's really up to us about what quantum we apply for on behalf of our communities.
I think we also have a good network and a team on the ground that are engaging with our communities and individual landowners around issues around water quality. And so we don't want to go and promise that there will be this funding if you don't get it, but starting to lay the seed about this is the type of work you could do is something that we can easily build into our work programs.
Oh, it is, it's a long, 2027 gives you time to build the story that gives that data that you need to sell the case. And that's why the early engagement and the opportunities and giving that forecast. I mean, I'm frustrated, and I've seen it even at OCC meetings, we were given the opportunity 2 weeks' time to do something. Well, it sounds great, but the energy that requires to respond to, yet we can paint a really good story. And I think some of the weather events that we've had, and look at what Simon Davies on TV showing his property and how the sediment came off areas that, you know, and I'm sure there's many inland. I certainly know that one floods, we lost areas from sediment. So it's setting that picture up, and I'm just wondering, I would welcome hearing back how we're making sure that we're getting that opportunity out to the community.
The main focus of the program at the moment is engaging with landowners based on some work we've had done, a strategic plan that's been developed for us, and we're also getting better at doing the mapping and prioritisation work with some really good support from our science team. So we've got better evidence than we had at the start of the program, and hopefully we can get engagement with the landowners in the right areas to inform that next funding bid, if that's what the council wants.
And I presume having better LiDAR data will also help that.
Yeah, and we've got some really good work going on, some really good modelling work going on with the existing data available, building on some early work that's going on. Real credit to our science team for their support in that area.
Great, thank you.
Can I just ask, I may have missed it, what level of funding are we targeting, and what in kind and cash input would be required to go with it?
I don't think we've hit on what it is that we want to apply for yet. The recipe, or what other councils have been doing, is providing a bid to MPI, and then in most other councils' cases, they've been funding it to a much greater degree than we have in the past. There is an in-kind contribution as part of that, both from ORC and from landowners. So, you know, that's the funding model. It's not dissimilar to other projects. But in terms of what we choose to apply for, that's really why we're raising it now. The funding bid will open in early 2026, and we've got that opportunity, as Councillor Wilson has pointed out, to put some really good effort into it.
So as you progress your funding application, I guess, that'll come back to the council.
Yes, that's an option, our recommended option, which is option one, that we bring it back before we send it off.
Thank you, Libby. Okay, I don't have any more questions. I think we've covered all 5 areas. So somebody like to, I'm happy to move the motions.
Option 1 or option 2?
Option 1. Quite a bit of chipping on. Option 1. Anybody like to second that? Thank you, Kate. Any debate? Thank you for that. I think just before we put, I'd just like to thank the team very much for the work that they're doing in the 5 projects tonight. It's actually really good. We're in a different seat now than we were a couple of years ago, and we're actually getting these projects on the move and starting to actually achieve some outputs, and getting the community involvement as well, which I think is a key to success with these environmental based projects. Got to get the people on the ground doing it. So it's really good to see that we're moving from thinking about it to actually getting on and doing the job. So well done. And I did quite enjoy the septic tank handouts as well. It was actually nice and clear. So no other input for that. I think we'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll move to item 9.6, which is my notes is just followed up waddling conifers and wallabies.
Happy to move. All 6.
We'll just take Sarah, that's right. Get in the chair. Hey, Libby. You could just briefly
Can I move
introduce, you just briefly introduce the paper, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so this paper seeks approval to enter service agreements with MPI for the delivery of the National Wilding and Wallaby programs. We're also seeking approval to commence delivery of these programs in advance of the co-signing of the agreements if there's a delay. And this is to ensure that we are most effective and efficient at delivering these programs. There is some financial risk with this approach, but it is proposed that this is to be managed within the biosecurity team budget. This option is really just to cover any timing issues related to receiving the funding in case there's a delay receiving that from the MPI end. And we have had that in the past, so we're trying to mitigate that risk going forward. We've also got Will and Gavin online, who are also co-authors of this paper, and Gavin leads our Wallaby program, and Will leads our Wild and Conifer program.
Thank you and welcome, Corolla. I've got a question from Kevin.
Yeah, just referring to recommendation 6, which refers to Schedule 2, Clause 6, which is basically around the contractor's obligations within. Is there any particular thing you want us to note there that is out of ordinary? But I just sort of thought they were standard contractual issues. Sorry, I haven't got a page. I'll have to flip back to it.
So, in answer to your question, no, there's nothing particular there to note. That's pretty standard, and that is our obligations.
Yeah. So you're just making sure that we've had a read. Yeah, good.
Yeah, so in putting the paper in front of council, the advice from our legal team was just making sure that, we're aware of the obligations as us as we enter into a contract, but the risk is relatively low in terms of the funding not coming through. It's just a timing issue, but needed to point you to your obligations,
And if I could probably ask Gavin, if this is the correct way, that if you don't receive the funding to kick off 1st of July, what impact does that normally have on your program, Gavin? And I know the answer, but I think it would be good to explain.
Yeah, thanks. It has a number of impacts ongoing right throughout the year. And I guess the first one is that we can't lock in the capacity and the capability that we need to deliver the program over the financial year. So all of our contractors that we would normally engage, they can't just sit around waiting. So they go off and find other work. And then when we need them later on in the year, when the funding does come through, they're no longer available. And then we're scrambling to sort of complete the work for the rest of the year. There's issues also around access. So typically when the funding arrives around September, November, a lot of the properties that we like to do work in are in the middle of lambing. So we've missed a good opportunity if we, through July, August, to actually get some boots on the ground and actually deliver some work. And those issues just put us under pressure for the rest of the year to try to deliver the program and get through the funding that we've been allocated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
A couple of questions about wild and conifer control. I'm looking at paragraph 19 where it notes that I guess the expected funding of $1.07 million from MPI. If you could just remind us what that level of funding will or will not be likely to achieve in Otago?
Well, can you give a quick overview of what we would be working on with the funding level in paragraph 19, please?
Yeah, so we're going to need the 1,070,000. So that's going to deliver a continuation of the control programs that we've had ongoing in the Wakatipu district with the WCG and with the works, the Central Otago group, Central Wild and Conifer group. It's approximately 850,000 to the Wakatipu and the balance to the Central Otago group. And that continuation of funding continues with ongoing maintenance of Wild and Conifer spread. Of course, the majority of work is through the Queenstown arena, but of course the work continues throughout areas like of Naseby and the Hawkesburn and like other parts of Central Otago.
So in short, we're looking at
maintaining, right? We're not looking at doing more than what we're currently doing.
So the funding coming from MPI is restricted to a maintenance or maintenance plus. So essentially, it's not any initial control, which is tackling new infestations or existing seed sources of large trees. It's an ongoing maintenance to maintain the gains that we've achieved over the last so many years.
Thank you. I guess just, which is an indication that the problem is far bigger than this amount of funding accounts for. My other question, recommendation 5 asks us to choose an option of 3, 4 or 5, which I see are in sections 43 to 46. I just wonder if you could give us a fuller explanation, someone, because I couldn't quite work it out, the differences between option 3 and option 5. Sorry, that's sections 41 and 46.
Yep, I can give an overview of that because I wrote this bit. So that's our recommended option 3 that you're thinking about. The committee recommends that expenditure of that one.
Oh, sorry, and look, suddenly we're on wallabies, not pines after all. Yes.
That's right. I think it covers both. So the first option 3, which is our recommended option, is that 550,000 financial risk, which is very low, is covered through our biosecurity budget. And there are things that we would not be able to deliver in our biosecurity budget if the funding falls through. Option 5 is that there is the potential to use biosecurity reserves, and therefore it wouldn't have an impact on our ability to deliver the biosecurity work that if that risk came to light. Does that make sense?
Right. So the recommended option there, option 3, if this funding didn't come through, there'd be some other biosecurity work that would not take place.
That's our recommended option because it's easiest to manage from, well, I've planned what wouldn't be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll have to think about that. Thank you.
Yeah. There is no indication that the money isn't going to come to us. It's just the timing issue that we have with it coming.
Question, I think, of Libby, is it correct that in the Wallaby program that ECAN currently fund their time delay and finances that same way? Or a similar method?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So they don't have the delay of when they start the work like we do.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Councillor.
Yeah, I'm happy to move as per the order paper, so option 1 and option 3. So option 1 for the recommendation 2 and option 3 for recommendation 5.
Thank you, Kate. Anyone second? Thanks, Kevin. Any discussion?
I think this is fabulous that something is there. I'm disappointed for the ambitions of the community who are out there doing a lot of work, especially in the wildland space, that there isn't more. But we have to be happy for any funding at the moment, and thank you for the team. I have to say the process is so much better than it used to be when it was a different methodology and different contracting arrangements. And the fact that it's now in-house is making it a lot better and gives us them the leeway to get going immediately. So if one reflected back what it was like, I think less than 3 years ago when the community were ready and willing to go and they couldn't, and we had a lot of work stifled because of that. So the fact that the staff have recommended that they can literally now plan to be going on the 1st of July is, and with confidence, it makes those volunteers and those organising them in a much better position. So it's great. So thank you to Gavin and Will for their work in planning all this work. It's great.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks.
It's good that we're getting on with this, but I'm really worried. I mean, we've got a lot of community groups. I'm going to speak for Wilding Pines. I don't understand wallabies as well as Kevin does, but in the Wilding Pine space, we've got a lot of community groups and people and volunteers working really hard, and to tell them that they have nothing more than a maintenance budget is really a bit beyond the pale. These people have put in a lot of time and effort, and we don't have the money to support them to carry on in their work. We have a report telling us the cost benefit ratio sits at, I think, 94 to 1, was it 96 to 1, 94 to 1. And yet we, even with that sort of evidence, we can't find the cash for these people to carry on work that we absolutely know needs doing. So I'm grudgingly grateful. And this is no reflection on our team. Our team does a fantastic job, but I think we've got to get somehow get into those government decision making and say, look, this ain't on, people. More work to be done. Cough up, please. Tax where it needs to tax. I don't know how you figure out how to get that money into these coffers, but it's only a certain amount of time that our volunteers are going to be prepared to just do a bit of maintenance while they watch the problem getting bigger. So not happy camper over here. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexa. Anybody else comment? You happy? If not, we'll put the motions. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Will and Gavin. It's awesome. We'll move on to 9.7,
Thank you.
which is Steve.
Oh, happiness.
Master. Steve's usually pretty quick.
This is a passionate topic.
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. I will let Simon introduce the board. Or Steve introducing himself. Thanks, Steve. We're just going to let you take it over, right?
Good afternoon, good evening. This paper is just for noting, and it's the first time we've brought the external review of the Port and Harbour Marine Safety Code to the committee. So that's been a long work in progress since my introduction here in 2017. And actually behind the scenes for the Harbour Master's role, this is actually quite a big piece of work, and it's pretty crucial in how we risk manage vessels in our harbour. The full report is attached. I'm really pleased to see there's some really great highlights in there around how we communicate with the port team, our interactions operationally, and how we're well supported from a council point of view, and high level support from the port executive team as well. So just happy to take any questions on the actual external report. If anybody's got any.
Thanks, Steve. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. It's not on that report though.
So, we're talking about the report, Kate, sorry.
Oh, it's about environmental delivery.
Stephen,
Maybe we could do that in the next.
Well, while Kate frames up her question that's related to the report, line 7 or item 7, number 7, the areas that's been pointed out for improvement. So yourself and your team are working on how to mitigate those. I think it comes up.
Indeed, yes. We're working through a number of the points. Some of them are quite minor, but there's some bits around the potential preparation for emergency management in the marine world, which could be more practiced, let's say. So I'm working that up with the port team, so that we've got a schedule of how we deal with that. We often wait for ships to come in and run their emergency exercise and jump on the back of that. But this is essentially saying let's be a bit more proactive in how we do that. So that's probably quite a good timing. We'll link into the civil defence team and the local, response community as well. And there are a number of other things. Nothing too significant. A few bits of admin and stuff, and how we produce some of our public engagement. But so all that work's in progress.
Thanks, Steve. Kate, you're happy?
Well, no, I'll ask the question a different way, and hopefully we'll get a report on it next time.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't have any more questions. I'm happy to move the report if somebody would like to second.
I'm happy to second.
So Alexa, this first Steve. I think this is another case where we've been the Harbour Master being around. We've had a bit of review, which is really good, and there's been some learnings come out of the review. So that's the reason it's important we do review, what we're doing and get third-party eyes over our procedures and processes. So it's really good that it's being done, and it's really good that you're looking at the ways that you can make your improvements. And I think we do have to be careful with number D, succession planning, or just make sure we don't get all the intellect inside your head.
Yeah.
And make sure that it's all written down so it can be passed on. So thank you very much. Anybody else like to make a comment? If not, we'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item number. Roll the up.
Last one.
9.8. And welcome
Alex
and Carlos. Good. And Simon's still there. So, Simon, will you introduce the paper, right?
Yeah, thanks, councillor. Look, we'll largely take it as read. This is our standard quarterly report that comes up to every 3 months. A couple of things to note. One is a correction to paragraph 30 that only listed dairy inspections up until the end of January. The number should be 245 until the end of April. And also just noting the difference from our standard quarterly paper is this paper includes as attachment to our annual targets, which come up once a year. Other than that, I think we can take it as read and open up for questions.
Thank you, Simon. Do we have questions?
Wasn't in the last.
Okay.
There's a bit of bike play going on here. Do we have any questions? Probably have to look up more, even on the questions.
Well, I will ask the question I was going to ask the last one, and I also was nervous whether I should be asking it, so I was just giving a heads up. I understand, and it was delighted because some of us spoke predatory Dunedin consultation yesterday. But so what we don't understand, and having your capacity, and is that you're assisting other community groups, and we've heard in the past you've assisted community groups doing water safety things. I understand you might be helping predator-free Dunedin. And I just thought it was such a nice.
Yes, so last week I took a request from that team in regard to, I think they're down to 3 possums left on the peninsula, is my understanding. And they've had trouble accessing one of the properties, and they've been given a 2-week window to access that property. Problem is the possums are on the cliff. And whilst they can track them with the drones, which is what they've been doing, they can't shoot them from the top. So they've asked if we can supply the resource of the vessel, and they can access the last 3 possums by shooting them from the water, which we've in principle agreed. And that's really dependent on the weather conditions around on Cape Saunders, to be fair. So if it's ideal, we'll jump on board and help that process. So I'm sitting in limbo at the moment, waiting for them to go, yes, let's go, and then we'll go, yes, it's possible, no, it's not, weather dependent.
It's just, yeah,
That's a lovely story.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Steve, will that go, will you record that as a cliff rescue?
As an incident. I think we'll just see if we come back in one piece first.
Do you have any other questions? I'm just going to do one question. That's just around the dairy farm audits. The number of audits that we've had so far is probably lower than, quite a bit lower than last year. I was wondering, 2 questions, I guess. Is there a reason for that? And the audits that are taking place, are they being targeted from last year's audits, or are they random?
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, they are down a little bit. Yes, last year was quite a big year historically. So the focus this year was more on, I guess, higher risk farms where we'd had some issues previously. So slightly lower number, but a bit more focused. Yeah, does that your question?
Yeah. Just to build on that, because we inspect on a risk base, it's actually good news that there are a lower number of inspections that have been completed, because it shows that in previous seasons we've had really good compliance outcomes and really good interactions. And also, as Carlos said, it was a key focus last year to get around as many of those dairy farms as possible, just especially because we're also moving into a new regulatory framework with rules around discharges and effluent ponds. So the team is doing really great work, and yeah, again, it's just based on risk, and the fact that there's less is also a really good indication of how we are progressing in terms of that group.
Yeah, I'll just tell one more, then I'll go to Kate. Another one is, for me, is around the dairy effluent on, consent, that'd be Alex, I guess. Alexandra, Alex, yeah, I was just wanting to know where we're at in that process, because I think this is like the last year of the rollout, and whether we're up to speed, you know, what numbers we got left to go, and to the people that haven't started the process know that they need to get onto the job.
Yes, it is the last year. So we have around 470 farms that would need to consider the rules, but not all of those farms would need consent if their ponds and things were done before the timeframe set out in the rules. So we processed just over 200 consents, with 30 currently being processed. So we are sitting relatively well, I think, in terms of how many we've processed. We are still running a number of online effluent workshops over the next few months. So that will be a combined approach from consents, compliance and environmental implementation. And then we'll also put out a media release relatively soon to ensure that those people are aware that they do need to apply for consent if they haven't already, and then provide their ongoing support like we have over the last few years.
Yeah, and if I may, just in that dairy space, we've got really good connections with our primary industry groups, and they're really focused in on supporting their milk suppliers to be able to have all of the appropriate consents in place. So really good relationships that the teams have built with those industry groups, and they will continue to support their farmers with this process as well. So just a continuation of our education and proactive approach in this dairy space.
Yeah, so that's about half the milk in the process. We've got consents, half still to go. 240 versus 230.
Yeah, and that 470 is the amount of farms that would need to consider them, but not all of them would need to get consent if their ponds were constructed before certain dates. So they may need to get a discharge consent, but not necessarily the pond. So we're working through that with farmers as they kind of come in and talk to us, but also proactively going out and doing the workshops as well.
Thank you.
I guess just to add, in terms of the discussions with farmers to be aware of it, that's been covered through the dairy audit process, and we saw those really high numbers last year in particular, and part of that was having those conversations on the farm while we were out there.
My question's on paragraph 36, it's or onwards, the environmental pollution incidents. And just checking the graph in figure 18, I think, is the number of reports graphed as to what type of pollution they were. And then you've got map 5 and the attachments, which talks about pollution incidents. How many of the claimed incidents were actually incidents? Or do we know that sort of corroborated? Or have we got the spots, the yellow and green dots, just the reports of them and then they've been resolved?
So the slight two differences between the chart and the map is that the chart is the number of phone calls, so the number of people that have called in. The map is the number of individual incidents that those phone calls relate to. But the map doesn't show some of those incidents will be ones that didn't require, didn't fall under our boundary, didn't require us to attend. So I don't think it answered your claimed incident question.
Well, it's just interesting. I mean, and again, almost goes to citizen science, and people respond, calling something in can be best of intent misguided, and I'm just wondering, how do we have any measure of, and I don't want to overcomplicate it, but of the number of people who report on fires or bad air quality or things like that, are they all bad air quality, or are they sometimes consented? Yeah.
Yeah, quick answer is that we don't actually have any data to show what is the, I guess you call it, justified complaint or not. I think the problem is there's a lot of grey in this.
Yeah.
So it'd be quite hard to actually measure that. Yeah, it's not something we've really looked at. But I think generally, it's sort of anecdotal. Most people are, if they lodge a complaint, it's for genuine reasons. It's not about nothing. It's just where, the degree, whether it's been and gone, whether it is within the rules or outside of the rules. So there's this whole scale there in terms of assessing the incident.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That I mean, the outlier, there are four that are significantly higher than the others, and maybe that's just either an education thing or something that people are most concerned about. So it's, yeah, just getting a measure of that. Thank you.
Figure 13, page 457, the waste significant non-compliance by consent type. There's been a big surge in the discharge to land and discharge to water permits, which I just wonder if there's any one particular reason for that.
Yeah, there is. So most of those, I think, around 40% relate to audits at Macraes Mine, which I think we've previously discussed. Taking those out of the equation, then the numbers are fairly similar to last year. And those were a significant non-compliance relating to reporting, not relating to an actual confirmed discharge.
Thank you. It's awesome. Do we have any other questions? If not, do we have somewhere prepared to move? Kate, second. Andrew, thank you. Any discussion? No discussion. If there's no discussion, thank you very much for your input, and once again for a really clear, easily to read report. Sets everything out really well. Thank you very much. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. That brings us to the conclusion. I'm very sorry we finished early, which didn't look that possible a while ago, but it's been a good effort. So thank you everybody at the table for their input, and to get through to now, it's been a big meeting. It's been a really good meeting. So thank you very much for that. And I'll just close off with the closing karakia. Ka mutua mātou mahi mo tēnei wā, manaki tia mai mātou katoa, o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau, hei o ki te aorangi. Amini. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.